big breaking we are bringing to you on CNN News 18. This on a day when the world has woken up to the news of the most wanted terrorist, and we are talking about al-zawahiri. The world being eliminated in the Afghan capital. This is a sensational twist that we are now bringing to you. The man who runs the Taliban. We are now going to tell you, this is a CNN News 18. It's a spoken exclusive to the man effectively who controls the Taliban regime, and that is Sirajuddin Haqqani. CNN News 18 has spoken exclusively with Sirajuddin Haqqani, who happens to be part of the Taliban regime. He's the interior minister of Taliban, and the sensational revelation he's made is that the Taliban has nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. This was an interview that was recorded just a couple of days ago before Zawahiri's strike took place, and those are the details we'll be bringing to you in a sensational interview that is a CNN exclusive. We have spoken to the Interior Minister of Taliban, and that is Sirajuddin Haqqani. Let's listen in to what he had to tell my colleague Anand Narasimhan earlier.
Hello and welcome to a CNN News 18 Global exclusive. We've got you the son of Mullah Omar, Mullah Yaqub, and now we have with us in conversation one of the most wanted terrorists in the world who's got a bounty in the US, but he's also the interior minister in the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan run by the Taliban. He's the man who controls the Haqqani network. Joining us now is Sirajuddin Haqqani. Mr. Haqqani, first up, thank you for speaking with us here at CNN News 18. It's the first time you're speaking with an Indian network, the News 18 network. First up, let me ask you, would you like to clarify your position and where you as Interior Minister of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan stand? And this is for the Indian audience.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem.
Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim. First of all, I thank your country, your countrymen, your channel and the employees of your channel for the interview, and I welcome you here. I extend my gratitude and respect. I, at the beginning of this interview, wish to clear all doubts and suspicions that are prevailing in India and world at large. That Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan has come into existence with support of Pakistan. I wish to draw your attention that the last 20 years in Afghanistan was a period of annexation, aggression and ulterior motives of the imperial forces to occupy the land of Afghanistan. Whatever they wish to call it, it was for an occupation. Our holy jihad to free our country from the imperialistic power is our legitimate right. We strive to establish diplomatic relations with India, our neighboring countries in the region and the world at large. Our freedom, our sovereignty and self-respect is our legitimate right.
But Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani, the Indian security establishment, the people at large have several concerns, largely about terror outfits like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Taiba in Afghanistan and the threat posed by them to Indian interests. Do you agree?
Afghanistan was at war with the external forces since 40 years, and the last 20 years we have been fighting the world for our legitimate right. Our soil is not meant for foreigners, but it belongs to the people of Afghanistan, and we have assured to the neighboring regional countries and to the world that the soil of Afghanistan will be used against any of the countries of the world.
But Mr. Haqqani, our security establishment, our intelligence agencies have confirmed locations, specific locations with latitude, longitude, coordinates of Jaish and Lashkar camps operating out of Afghanistan soil. You are in charge of security in Afghanistan. You are the Interior Minister. So let me ask you this. If at any stage, if the Indian government gives you specific coordinates and locations of these camps, will you be able to act and operate together with the Indian agencies?
Their fears do not have any base. We wish to have cordial relations with India, and such fears seem to be misplaced and undesirable.
What guarantee of security would you provide to Indian diplomatic institutions, projects and businessmen in Afghanistan at this stage when they want to operate normally?
افغانستان خو
I have already mentioned previously that such fears are baseless, and we have established peace in the country and ensured that everyone in Afghanistan is safe and secure. We have ensured that the business establishments, national institutions and foreign investments are safe and secure. We have security forces in place to provide security to these establishments, including all the diplomatic institutions. There is no credible fear for the project's investments. The Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan will prepare ground for their operations without any fear. We firmly assure you.
Mr. Haqqani, another area of concern and a growing concern is the threat of Daesh Khorasan and also very, very critical inputs, confirmed inputs regarding the network of Al-Qaeda affiliates operating out of Afghanistan. What is your take on this?
As we have promised to the world, also the Islamic world is in arms against the ISIS. To control and throw it out, many steps have been taken. With regard to Al-Qaeda, it has no presence in Afghanistan and is no more a threat, and the world is required not to feel threatened about the already dead outfit. Some Western forces which are trying to destabilize the country are being taken care of by the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan to control and contain these forces.
You say that the Al-Qaeda are not a threat and there is a concerted effort to also quash the Daesh. But what steps are you taking as Interior Affairs Minister and also Taliban to stop Afghanistan from becoming a global terror hub again? Because that's the biggest concern.
We have repeatedly said that the Treaty of Doha, which was signed, will be implemented in letter and spirit. And our message to the world is that no such terror outfit will make Afghanistan its center of terror operation. Our security agencies are competent to prevent and to nip such attempts in the bud, and we are firmly united against such forces.
Mr. Haqqani, you are seen as Pakistan's man in the Taliban establishment. You belong more to Pakistan than the Taliban. That's what people say. How do you describe your equations with Iran and Pakistan?
It is the need of the hour that the promises we made to the world, neighbors in the region, in pursuit of these goals, we are striving hard to have friendly and cordial relations with the neighboring countries.
Thank you for speaking with us, Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani.
All right, I'll try and reiterate that interview for our viewers. Why it is so crucial is considering A, it was recorded just 15 hours before the strike took place on al-Zawahiri. It is important to note that this interview was recorded before the strike operation that was conducted in Kabul by the CIA. Also, not to forget, the team of CNN News 18 was very much present on the ground. And on that note, let me also bring you a quick nutshell of what these assurances have been like by Sirajuddin Haqqani to CNN News 18 in that interview. We wish to have cordial and diplomatic relations with India. That's point number one to be noted. Point number two that he's made in the interview is also equally crucial. Let's have a quick look. If I may request my team to toggle over to point number two. Taliban did not come back to par with Pakistan's support. That is what Sirajuddin Haqqani just now said. Point number three, we won't let Afghan soil be used against any country. Isn't it ironical on a day when al-Zawahiri has been killed? Now, Al-Qaeda has no presence in Afghanistan, no longer a threat. This is the most sensational claim, that Al-Qaeda has no presence, absolutely. And we all know where al-Zawahiri was killed. He was killed in Kabul. No terror outfit will make Afghanistan its center of operations. That's point number five that they had to say. It rather comes as a bitter irony. We all know that al-Zawahiri was killed in a CIA operation conducted in Kabul. The US intelligence officers have lashed out at the Taliban because they are very much of the opinion that the Taliban was aware of al-Zawahiri's whereabouts. And on that note, let's also try and get in a sense of perspective. For that, I'm joined in by Brigadier Vinod Datta, who's the former Deputy Assistant Chief of the IDS. I'll also be joined in by Mr. Ashok Sajjanar, who's a former diplomat. Let me bring in Mr. Datta first. Brigadier Datta, what do you make of this interview? Isn't it testimony of the kind of lies the Taliban is peddling? Just because this interview was recorded hours before al-Zawahiri was killed in that CIA operation, you've heard what they had to say. Sirajuddin Haqqani said that Al-Qaeda has nothing to do in Taliban, that countries need not fear about Al-Qaeda's presence as far as the presence in Afghanistan is concerned. What do you make of the kind of lies that are now being peddled?
Well, the statement of Sirajuddin Haqqani is quite crystal clear that it is a bundle of lies. If you recall that when this Doha Accord was signed,
right,
the Taliban, the second regime of Taliban started violating the accord right from, even when the ink had not dried up. Now, what is expected from Taliban is that they are going to give you all this kind of lip service. The very fact that he has been killed in Kabul, that he was staying in Kabul, speaks volumes that yes, they do sponsor terrorism, they do support terrorism, they do acknowledge the presence of such like organizations. Right. Secondly, Afghanistan is in such a state that they are in requirement of dire finances. They require food grain. They require everything. And the only, organizations which can provide them are these terrorist organizations. And they are going to harbor them in their country. It is going to be considered as a safe haven because they want money. They want moolah. They want, sponsorship from such organizations. Because none of the countries or most of the countries have shunned the Taliban second regime.
Brigadier Datta, if I could also take my next question from Ashok Sajjanar quickly. Ashok Sajjanar, it's very crucial to refer to what US Secretary of State Antony Blinken had to say. He said that what Taliban is doing currently is in clear violation of the Doha Agreement. I'd like your thoughts. Not to forget that the US intelligence officers have also pointed out that the Taliban was very much in cahoots as far as the al-Zawahiri's location in Taliban, or rather Kabul, is concerned.
No, absolutely, Akansha. What you say is very right, and what Antony Blinken has said has been crystal clear from last year August, when the Taliban took power in Afghanistan. They have been peddling these lies that there are no terrorist groups in Afghanistan. They do not pose any threat to any country. And what they have really been wanting is international recognition. They've been wanting international legitimacy so that the funds can start flowing in. The funds, Afghanistan funds that have been frozen by the United States and in other countries, that they can start flowing in. So this is both Afghanistan as well as their supporters in Pakistan. Right. They have been peddling these lies that there are no terrorists in Afghanistan. But India has been maintaining, and even at you would have seen, Akansha, even at the latest SCO meeting, Dr. S. Jaishankar, he said there has to be zero tolerance as far as terrorism is concerned. And all the countries in the region are apprehensive of terrorist groups that have been operating here. That is one of the most fundamental reasons why, even after 1 year of the Taliban taking over power by force in Kabul, not a single country, neither in the region or outside, has recognized the Taliban dispensation.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that 1 year of pull-out as far as US forces are concerned. We are looking at the Doha Agreement. Let's talk about it from India perspective also, not to forget that we are looking at a very crucial moment for India-Afghanistan relations, when India is in fact considering the possibility of reopening its embassy. Having said that, there were some very crucial questions posed by Anand Narasimhan in that interview. He spoke about getting assurances. What were the assurances that Taliban would be willing to offer to India as far as the terror locations of JEM or LET in Afghanistan are concerned? I'm going to quickly toss over to Anand, who's also joining us on this broadcast. Anand, please go ahead.
Thanks for that, Akanksha. Ladies and gentlemen, we recorded this interview on the 29th. That was on Friday, just about 15 hours before the strike happened at Ayman al-Zawahiri. Now, there were a lot of efforts that went behind this interview because Sirajuddin Haqqani is not an easy man to get. So the efforts of our investigations editor Manoj Gupta have to be considered. The other aspect is that the CNN News 18 team was just about a kilometer or kilometer and a half away from Sherpur region, where this strike actually happened early in the wee hours, early morning on Saturday. And more importantly, what Sirajuddin Haqqani told CNN News 18 is important. And you have to look at the words, and it sounded very ominous when he said Al-Qaeda as an organization poses no threat and it is as good as dead. And 15 hours after he says this, Sirajuddin Haqqani says this, Ayman al-Zawahiri is dead. So is it quite ominous? The other aspect is the Pakistanis said Osama is not on our soil, and they were found in Abbottabad. He was neutralized in Abbottabad. The Taliban say Al-Qaeda is not on our soil, and Ayman al-Zawahiri is neutralized in the heart of Kabul. But are there multiple ways of looking at what the Taliban are currently saying? The other aspect is Sirajuddin Haqqani and the Taliban believe that America had no business striking on Afghan soil. America believes Taliban had no business harboring Ayman al-Zawahiri. Now, can both say we are unhappy, but both knew what was going to happen? Is that a possibility? CNN News 18 had no inkling that Ayman al-Zawahiri was just a kilometer and a half away located, and that this strike would happen. But the fact is that this talk, when Taliban say that they do not want Afghanistan to be a hotbed for terror or an operation, and they want to function individually and work for the people of Afghanistan, there comes a different dynamic. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar and Brigadier Datta with us. Now, I am looking at the exact context in which we said there was a little bit of a delay in putting out this interview because we had to also, the interview answers were in Pashto. We had to try and get the English translations, and we had to get the facts right in terms of what was said by Sirajuddin Haqqani, because every word was very measured. And this is what he told us. And when we played out this excerpt, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar, he very clearly came out and said that Al-Qaeda as an outfit poses no threat to anybody in the world, and this organization is as good as dead. He says this, and 15 hours later, Ayman al-Zawahiri is dead. Ashok Sajjanarji. So there are two ways to look at it. One, we can't take the Taliban's word, and we can't trust the Taliban because India is very actively engaging with the Taliban establishment because of the people-to-people connect, and they want to establish people-to-people connect. We have resumed diplomatic operations, although not a full-fledged embassy, but visa processing has happened. Our envoys are on ground. Attaché is on ground to facilitate return of Afghan people who want to go back, or those who want to come for education or for health concerns. That's one. We are trying to also bring in trade. We are sending them 50,000 metric tons of wheat. We have pressurized Pakistan to open the gates. The Taliban are assuring full cooperation. So when a Sirajuddin Haqqani says Al-Qaeda is as good as dead, and 15 hours later Ayman al-Zawahiri is dead, but Sirajuddin Haqqani also said Al-Qaeda is not present on Afghan soil. So there are contradictions and there are also coincidences. How would you like to look at it?
Yes, thank you very much, Anand, for these questions. You've raised a number of questions, but before I respond to that very quickly, I would say kudos to you, to CNN News 18 team, to Manoj Gupta and all your members, for this absolutely phenomenal interview. You've been doing this. You did all these interviews around the 15th of August last year.
Yes.
And you haven't missed a step while getting us this interview also.
Thank you.
Now, coming to it, as far as Ayman al-Zawahiri's and Sirajuddin Haqqani, his comments are concerned, they have been mentioning this, that there is not a single terrorist group on the Afghan soil, and the countries don't really need to worry. They don't face any threat. But of course, the world has not believed the Taliban dispensation. That is why, as I mentioned earlier, no country has recognized them. You know, it's a question, of course, of women's rights, human rights, girl, child, you know, what is the condition of the minorities. But I think over and above all that is the fact that countries in the neighborhood and further away are very apprehensive about the presence of all these terrorist groups. Now, I think India definitely feels that all these groups have helped the Taliban to, so to say, come to power in Afghanistan. So there is no way that Taliban would be able to tell these groups, whether it is Al-Qaeda or Jaish or Lashkar or any of the others, that now that we have come to power, we don't need you and you will not be allowed to operate from our territory, from our soil. So I think this is a safe haven that has been provided to them. It will continue. Now, you can read meaning in the words that, you know, what Sirajuddin Haqqani said, that that Al-Qaeda is dead. But I don't think he really implied, I don't think he had any inkling, because I think Al-Qaeda has been a very staunch, strong and a long-standing supporter of the Taliban, and they would not like to give up because that would, amongst the world of the terrorists, you know, that would also impact on their credibility. As far as India is concerned, what you say, we are taking very measured step, very small, should I say, baby steps in moving forward. You would know that all the countries in the region, whether it is Iran, Uzbekistan, except Tajikistan, all countries in the region are engaging with the Taliban, whether they have recognized them formally or not, whether they have, all of them have their establishments, all of them have their embassies in Kabul. They are engaging with them. What we have been saying is, you know, our embassy never closed down because there were local Afghan representatives who were always manning our embassy. And as far as visa facilities are concerned, they were being extended to the Afghan people. Now we have moved in a more proactive manner in terms of providing what you said very correctly, Anand, 50,000 tons of wheat to Pakistan, but also medical supplies, whether it is COVID-19 vaccines or other essential supplies through Iran, through Dubai, we have been providing to them. This is a, you know, our people-to-people connect that we want to strengthen. So again, we are saying that it is purely functional reasons that our officials are there. It is definitely not any indication of diplomatic recognition. And I must say that the statements, that the position that India has taken has been a major factor that other countries have not extended diplomatic recognition to Afghanistan, to the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. Otherwise, if India, so to say, you know, were to cross the line and give indications that we are willing to work with, then I think it will have a very significant impact on the position that other countries are also
Ambassador Sajanar, before I bring in Brigadier Datta, I have a lot of people who are interested and who have worked strategically in this sphere, and I've been watching the developments. I have a very interesting question. I've got Lieutenant General Abhay Krishna watching the broadcast, and he's asking a question saying, please ask Ambassador Sajanar, what is the agenda of the US to kill Zawahiri in the prevailing situation? So it's not...
I think basically, an interesting question, General, and let me respond to it from my own perspective. I think what the United States has been trying to give the impression is that although it might be focused on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, although it might be focused on the Indo-Pacific, that is where the major challenges are. But it has not removed its eyes off Afghanistan. Security and stability and peace and tranquility in the region continues to be very important. That is why you would have found that the United States has been trying to reach out to countries in the region, whether it is Uzbekistan, whether it is Kazakhstan. You would have seen that the foreign ministers of these countries were recently in Washington, D.C., and they have been talking about it. And there have also been discussions on having bases there so that they could carry out, the United States could carry out operations in Afghanistan if the needs, if such need arose. So I think my response to General Krishna would be that the United States definitely continues to be engaged and continues to be very mindful of the situation in Afghanistan, and it doesn't want countries in the region also to think that there is a power vacuum into which countries like China or Russia can walk in.
Right. But Brigadier Datta, how would you see this and in terms of, it's a very detailed interview. CNN News 18 has actually asked about 24 questions, also a lot of it hinging upon India, Pakistan-Afghanistan equations, Pakistan-Iran equations, India-Afghanistan equations, and the role that the Taliban would want to play. I'm just going to go back to what he has said, what Sirajuddin Haqqani says. Does this have greater meaning? Because it's very strong words coming from a Sirajuddin Haqqani. One would expect it from some of the other leaders, but for the Sargana of the Haqqani network, the Interior Minister of Afghanistan, to come out, and I quote, this is exactly what he said. He said, as we have promised to the world, also the Islamic world is in arms against the Daesh. That is, because we asked him about Daesh, Khorasan or the ISIS. To control and throw it out, many steps have been taken. With regard to the Al-Qaeda, it has no presence in Afghanistan and is no more a threat. And the world is required not to feel threatened about the already dead outfit. Now, is this a mirage, or should we look at it as nothing but, false pretense, or trying to put on a shroud over the reality and to try and give them cover fire and camouflage? Or should we say that this is slowly the Taliban trying to say that if you can get rid of them, get rid of them. Give us the entire cover of plausible deniability and go ahead and do what you want to do.
Well, Anand, firstly, let me compliment you for that interview, and I feel so proud that you have a 360-degree presence because it is not a very easy task to get such a very candid and a very detailed interview. Now, what Sirajuddin Haqqani had said, I mean, it is a smoke screen. You see, there is a lot behind the screen because Taliban itself, I mean, the very fact that they are denying, if you recall the Doha Accord, they have been violating it. Now, the very fact that they are saying that Pakistan had no role in getting Taliban there or getting, yes, if you see the ISI chief was there. He was, monitoring the operations. Otherwise, the Panjshir operations would have been a success. So what Sirajuddin Haqqani is saying, it is a diplomatic kind of, a statement which he has given. But the reality is something else. These organizations, these tanzeems, they have found a safe haven as far as Afghanistan is concerned. Now, if you see the importance, the geostrategic importance of Afghanistan, whosoever controls Afghanistan controls Central Asia. And the new strategic equations which are emerging. Now, if you see, the world has got, two polarities. Like one is the American-centric world order and the other is the Chinese-centric world order.
Correct. In
which, if you see, the Iran is also, echeloned towards China. Russia is also with them. So this kind of, and China has its own apprehensions. So the Sirajuddin Haqqani's statement that there is no Al-Qaeda remnants or there is no Al-Qaeda present has been proved grossly wrong. So what Afghanistan is basically looking for is they are looking for finance, they are looking for food grain, because if you see the internal situation in Afghanistan, it is in a sad state of neglect. It is pathetic because people are selling their kids, people are selling themselves to just to survive. Yes. So all these kind of things, what they require is the roti, kapda and makan. जो तीन बुनियादी चीजें हैं वो चाहिए उनको. But unfortunately, not very many countries are forthcoming. So what they are basically looking is that they will be harboring such kind of tanzeem, such kind of organizations, which are going to get them some kind of money, some kind of help. And you see the very fact that Al-Qaeda, it is still a very, very potent organization or a tanzeem which is capable of striking deep and making an impact in the world. So the very fact that al-Zawahiri was there, I mean, and I'm sure there are no free lunches. He must have been there with a cost, with some kind of benefit to the to the Taliban government.
Correct.
So all these factors,
all these factors come into play, but the contrary to what the US narrative is, Here he was there in the heart of Kabul, not so far away from the defense area. So it is impossible that a lot of people did not know about his presence at all. The other aspect is, did they just offer him up and say, okay, here he's here, do what you can? The third part is that Joe Biden is under a lot of pressure because he's already copying a lot of flack for the exit from Afghanistan. The way the Russia-Ukraine conflict, America has not been able to do much. You have China saber rattling with Taiwan. And of course, he's battling recession internally. So does this come out as a savior kind of a narrative where he claims a victory here, knowing fully well that we could take him out whenever at our own convenience? So there is also this whole concept of hellfire, targeted attack, and nobody else, not even members either of the Haqqani family or members of the Zawahiri family being harmed. It's only Ayman al-Zawahiri who stepped out into the balcony and he was neutralized. Now, if Ayman al-Zawahiri had a threat to his life and he knew about it, why would he step out into the balcony knowing fully well that he could be targeted from the skies? The Afghans and the Taliban and Al-Qaeda know fully well about these drone strikes. So there are many, many questions, but however, we'll deliberate. But the larger question is, can the Taliban be trusted? Because what they claimed and what has happened, there is a dichotomy there. Is it a coincidence or is it absolute contradiction to what the claims were? This will remain a subject matter of discussion and debate through the course of the day. It's a big story here. Ambassador Sajanar and Brigadier Datta, thank you very, very much. We're just going to play out a short excerpt of that conversation CNN News 18 had with Sirajuddin Haqqani. Would you like to clarify your position and where you as Interior Minister of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan stand? And this is for the Indian audience.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem.
Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim. First of all, I thank your country, your countrymen, your channel and the employees of your channel for the interview, and I welcome you here. I extend my gratitude and respect. I, at the beginning of this interview, wish to clear all doubts and suspicions that are prevailing in India and world at large. That Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan has come into existence with support of Pakistan. I wish to draw your attention that the last 20 years in Afghanistan was a period of annexation, aggression and ulterior motives of the imperial forces to occupy the land of Afghanistan. Whatever they wish to call it, it was foreign occupation. Our holy jihad to free our country from the imperialistic power is our legitimate right. We strive to establish diplomatic relations with India, our neighboring countries in the region and the world at large. Our freedom, our sovereignty and self-respect is our legitimate right.
But Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani, the Indian security establishment, the people at large have several concerns, largely about terror outfits like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Toiba in Afghanistan and the threat posed by them to Indian interests. Do you agree?
Afghanistan was at war with the external forces since 40 years, and the last 20 years we have been fighting the world for our legitimate right. Our soil is not meant for foreigners, but it belongs to the people of Afghanistan, and we have assured to the neighboring regional countries and to the world that the soil of Afghanistan will be used against any of the countries of the world.
But Mr. Haqqani, our security establishment, our intelligence agencies have confirmed locations, specific locations with latitude, longitude, coordinates of Jaish and Lashkar camps operating out of Afghanistan soil. You are in charge of security in Afghanistan. You are the Interior Minister. So let me ask you this. If at any stage, if the Indian government gives you specific coordinates and locations of these camps, will you be able to act and operate together with the Indian agencies?
Their fears do not have any base. We wish to have cordial relations with India, and such fears seem to be misplaced and undesirable.
What guarantee of security would you provide to Indian diplomatic institutions, projects and businessmen in Afghanistan at this stage when they want to operate normally?
I have already mentioned previously that such fears are baseless, and we have established peace in the country. and ensured that everyone in Afghanistan is safe and secure. We have ensured that the business establishments, national institutions and foreign investments are safe and secure. We have security forces in place to provide security to these establishments, including all the diplomatic institutions. There is no credible fear for the project's investments. The Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan will prepare ground for their operations without any fear. We firmly assure you.
Mr. Haqqani, another area of concern and a growing concern is the threat of Daesh Khorasan and also very, very critical inputs, confirmed inputs regarding the network of Al-Qaeda affiliates operating out of Afghanistan. What is your take on this?
As we have promised to the world, also the Islamic world is in arms against the ISIS. To control and throw it out, many steps have been taken. With regard to Al-Qaeda, it has no presence in Afghanistan and is no more a threat, and the world is required not to feel threatened about the already dead outfit. Some Western forces which are trying to destabilize the country are being taken care of by the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan to control and contain these forces.
You say that the Al-Qaeda are not a threat and there is a concerted effort to also quash the Daesh. But what steps are you taking as Interior Affairs Minister and also Taliban to stop Afghanistan from becoming a global terror hub again? Because that's the biggest concern.
We have repeatedly said that the Treaty of Doha, which was signed, will be implemented in letter and spirit. And our message to the world is that no such terror outfit will make Afghanistan its center of terror operation. Our security agencies are competent to prevent and to nip such attempts in the bud, and we are firmly united against such forces.
Mr. Haqqani, you are seen as Pakistan's man in the Taliban establishment. You belong more to Pakistan than the Taliban. That's what people say. How do you describe your equations with Iran and Pakistan?
It is the need of the hour that the promises be made to the world, neighbors in the region. In pursuit of these goals, we are striving hard to have friendly and cordial relations with the neighboring countries.
We have some big breaking news coming in as we are learning that the Enforcement Directorate has raided and conducted multiple raids. One of them is on the National Herald office. Around 12 locations are currently being covered by the Enforcement Directorate. This is the big breaking news that we are bringing to you. There are searches currently being conducted at 12 locations. For more details, let's quickly go across to Akash Sharma, who's live from the Herald House office at the moment. Akash, if you could take me through all the latest in terms of those 12 raids that are being conducted. What are these locations that we are talking about?
Right. So, Kamsha, first of all, let me show you the visuals of this particular building. This is the iconic Herald House, and we have, National Herald office at the 4th floor. We are learning that ED officers just a few hours back have reached here. They are carrying out some searches and are looking for some documents. Also, we are learning that around 10 to 12 places are being searched as of now. In the past, we have seen that how, all the developments happened. For example, we saw that how Sonia Gandhi was questioned in the case of AJL, where some transaction happened between Young India and AJL, and now this is the big development where we are getting that around 10 to 12 locations are being searched in the whole country in related to this particular AJL case, where this case is being investigated by ED. And at this particular point, this is the building where we are learning that ED officers are very much inside. Also, we are getting this, some officers have left this particular premises, but some officers are still there. They are looking for some sort of documents, and this is not the only place where this particular search is being carried out, because as you rightly mentioned, around 10 to 12 places are being searched as of now by the Enforcement Directorate, because, if we talk about this particular case, you see this was a case by Subramaniam Swamy where it was reinvestigated by ED. We saw how Rahul Gandhi and after that Sonia Gandhi was questioned in this particular case, and now we are learning that AJL and National Herald are being, a kind of a raid, you can say, but as of now, officers are saying that these are the searches because they are looking for some sort of documents as of now. Akanksha.
Akash, stay with us as I'll also quickly go across to 10 Janpat, which is the residence of Sonia Gandhi. Siddhant is stationed over there. Siddhant, if you could take us through what is happening on ground zero, considering we've seen a lot of protests take place when Sonia Gandhi was being questioned by the ED. The timing is very interesting because as soon as the questioning with the ED got over, the raids at other locations have now taken place. If you could take me through what's happening at 10 Janpat right now.
Well, that's correct. You know, these raids are happening in a very surprise manner because questioning with almost everyone on the board has already got finished. In fact, from Pawan Bansal to Mallikarjun Kharge to Sonia and Rahul Gandhi, all have been summoned on multiple times. And in fact, this is what the ED officials have told us, that both in their statements given to Enforcement Directorate, both Sonia and Rahul, they have shifted blame they have completely shifted blame on Motilal Vora, and Motilal Vora is no more, he's not alive. So this is what ED has to say. Now what ED sources are telling us is that the companies related to the suspicious transactions are being raided. A. B, we have also been told that no residential premises are being raided, because in fact when news came out that 10 locations are being raided, there was speculation that there is a possibility of the premises of directors of Young India are also being raided. But ED sources have clarified this, that no residential premises are being raided.
Right.
This raid is basically on the companies linked to the suspicious transaction related to the National Herald.
Right. All right,
this
stay
is
with
what
us,
ED
Siddhant, because
is
I have
telling
to
us.
quickly
Back to
go
you.
across to Ashish as well, who's tracking the ED very closely for us. Ashish, you heard what Siddhant had to say. He's made a very valid point that it is the companies which are being raided. Are we now looking at the money trail being finally, as far as the tracking is concerned, is the money trail now in the spotlight?
So, just before, when the entire deal was happening related to National Herald, there were certain transactions of purchase of shares, and these purchase of shares happened just at the time, including, if you remember, there are certain people from the Gandhi family also who bought these shares, and certain people who bought the shares. Interestingly, out of 1,500 people who were the shareholders of National Herald came, into existence even before the 1947, when we got our independence.
Right.
Since then, there were around 1,500 shareholders. Out of that, only 7 people in Lucknow called, they had an AGM, and finally a decision was taken to transfer the company Associated Journal into the hands of a newly registered company called Young Indian. So here, what my sources in the Enforcement Directorate tell me, that they are looking at certain transactions from where the money came for purchase of shares just at the time of when the company was basically being handed over to Young Indian. And that is why around 10 locations are being raided, which include locations in Delhi, in Lucknow, and some in West Bengal or Kolkata as well. So here what we can confirm is that Enforcement Directorate is basically looking at purchase of shares just at the time when the takeover of the Associated Journal was happening by Young Indian, and from where did they get that money for purchase of shares. That is what the Enforcement Directorate is looking at as of now.
All right, stay with us, Ashish, because I'm going to quickly go across to our political editor, Pallavi Ghosh, as well. Pallavi, we've seen some very heated protests taking place as far as the Congress party is concerned, especially during the questioning of Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi. What are your sources telling you? Is the Congress now expected to conduct another set of protests? We've seen Rahul Gandhi also getting detained last week. What can we expect now?
Well, immediately no protests are being planned, but of course they're going to register their protest. I mean, the parliament session is on even as we speak, and there has been a Facebook post which of course has been put out by Rahul Gandhi, but this is before the raids began. But I think that essentially captures the crux of what the Congress party has been saying, and is also going to be saying that how ED, the CBI, all of them are consistently misused by the government, because all they want to do is divert attention from core issues like price rise, unemployment, so on and so forth. We're still awaiting, but we have been told we can expect a structured formal response from the Congress party with the ongoing raids. But their stand has been consistent. No wrongdoing has been done. There was no FIR which was filed. There was a closure on this entire case. Why is it that suddenly this case comes into limelight, and why is it that Gandhis are being harassed, to use the words of the Congress party, by inconsistent questioning of them at the ED headquarters? So the line of the Congress party will remain the same. The raids are not required, unwarranted, and only politically motivated.
All right, that's an interesting trajectory that Pallavi has just highlighted. Anshul, if I may come to you, you are stationed at Rahul Gandhi's residence. What is the situation like as far as his residence is concerned? Is there any sort of activity happening there?
No, Akansha, not as of now. We saw the kind of massive protest that happened when Rahul Gandhi actually went out for the interrogation with the ED. And now, since his transcripts are with the ED is going ahead and searching almost 10 offices, all linked to the AGL and linked to National Herald. This is what we are being told. Initially, the information was that there could be raid on residences also, but yes, the ED has, sources within the ED has come out and already clarified that there are no raids that are happening on any private residences. So currently outside Rahul Gandhi's house, it is absolutely, there is no action happening as of now. But yes, it remains to be seen what is the future course of action that the ED is going to take, because remember, when Rahul Gandhi was investigated for more than 50 hours, there was massive protests. In fact, the place at which I am standing, many Congress workers actually gathered over here to protest for Rahul Gandhi. They were raising slogans for Rahul Gandhi at that point in time. But as of now, the situation seems to be very normal. However, it remains to be seen what does the ED have to do in the future, and will there be any more raids except the 10 locations that are being raided as of now, Akansha.
Right. Ashish, if I could come to you, as something as was pointed out by Siddhant as well, that during the questionings, whether it was Rahul Gandhi or Sonia Gandhi, the blame was also being shifted on to the treasury holders or the other senior leaders of the Congress. That also includes the late Motilal Vora. Will this, the current raid of the companies, so to say, as you pointed out, as far as the shareholding is concerned, will this also help the raids? Will they now help in establishing what was the role of Motilal Vora, and how much was the involvement of Sonia and Rahul Gandhi?
So, you know, what they have told before the Enforcement Directorate is that all financial transactions were handled by Motilal Vora. Now, by saying that, that does not mean that you're not responsible for what.
We'll try and reconnect with Ashish, but for now, let's also go back to Siddhant, who was highlighting this point. Siddhant, if I could come to you, we were just discussing the role of Motilal Vora and the other treasury holders who stepped in later. If you could take us through that very crucial involvement.
Well, that's right. As Ashish was highlighting, and I'm sure he wanted to raise this point, that shifting a blame onto Motilal Vora, who is no more, doesn't set Gandhis free from the responsibility. And this is exactly what Enforcement Directorate officers are also telling us, that even they have made two important points. One, that the decisions were taken by Motilal Vora then, as far as the transactions are concerned, and the loans which were given by Young India to Association. And the second, that under subsection 25 of the Companies Act, the assets which were acquired by Young India cannot be sold, and the private individual cannot take benefit from those assets. So these were the two key points which were told to Enforcement Directorate office by both the Gandhis at the time of recording their statements, and this is what ED sources have also confirmed to us. Now these raids are happening at a time when Parliament is going on,
Right.
and Enforcement Directorate is telling us that they have come across some suspicious transactions. In fact, Ashish was highlighting it
Right.
correctly, that to buy that company, there were some transactions which happened, and today the raid is related to that,
Right.
especially on those
Siddharth,
companies.
stay with us because
Back to
I
you.
believe Ashish is back with us. Ashish, if you could throw more light and expand on those very crucial aspects as far as those suspicious findings are concerned, and not just that, the role of Motilal Vora, how this is going to, how the current raids will actually try and segregate his role from what the role of the Gandhis was.
So, as I was telling, that Enforcement Directorate is basically looking at certain transactions that happened just at the time when the takeover of the company was happening. You remember in 2010-11, when Young Indian took over Associated Journal, there were certain transactions where there was purchase of shares. Now, even if you go through the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal order, it very clearly indicates that just before when the takeover was happening, there was certain purchase of shares so that a person gets voting rights to basically to give clearance to the deal. So here the clearance of the deal was given only by 7 people. We have already named these 7 people, and now the Enforcement Directorate is basically looking at the companies basically giving money for these transactions. So that is where the transaction, that is what the Enforcement Directorate is looking at. But as far as during questioning what Rahul and Sonia Gandhi said, they said that the entire financial transaction was basically being taken care of by Motilal Vora because he was the treasurer and he had all independent rights, and we were not aware on how the money came in, how it went out, who were the people involved. So they did not have any idea. But they said that it's a Section 25 company. It's like an NGO where an income and expenditure account is prepared, not a profit and loss account is prepared, and thus we
Ashish,
as an
stay with us
individual
because I'm also
or
joined in by Mr. Subramaniam Swamy. Mr. Swamy, thank you for speaking to us on CNN News 18. Now that these raids are currently being conducted in over 10 locations from what we learn, what in your opinion is going to be the focus of the Enforcement Directorate, especially considering that the questioning of the Gandhis is over?
Well, you see, there was no doubt that the transaction of that company, Doltex or something like that.
Dotex.
Yes. That was, on the face of it, absurd because there was no interest payments charged. There was no mortgage, included. It was a loan which in the account books of Doltex is donation, and in the account books of a Young Indian, it is put as loan, and they get 1 crore without any encumbrances or compulsions of having to pay it back, and through that the transaction has taken place. Now, Doltex company itself is in a lot of problem before this. And obviously, there's a money laundering angle, and I'm sure that the ED in their investigation and their own determination of the availability.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Swamy, whether it is Dotex or if we look at the shareholders which were there at the beginning of the company vis-a-vis how many shareholders exist now, we know that there's a huge discrepancy. Where do you see the discrepancies as far as this entire case is concerned?
First of all, that 90 crores is bogus.
Right.
Income tax has established that there is no record whatsoever of such a amount being given in installments or otherwise. So it was totally a strategy to get the control of the company by saying that very conveniently saying we can't recover it because the company has closed down, and give it to Young Indian at a small price of 50 lakhs. And thereby the Young Indian becomes the owner of that non-existent loan. And then the Young Indian says, give me 9 crores of 10 rupees each shares, which makes them 99.1% ownership of the total shares. And in that shareholders meeting, they don't invite the age-old shareholders who were there from either their sons or daughters of people who originally bought the shares in 1937. So, I mean, it's such an open, shut fraud case that I'm surprised that it took the government of India and the Enforcement Directorate so long.
Mr. Swamy, whatever has emerged in public arena as far as the questioning of Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi by the ED is concerned is the fact that a lot of blame has been pinned on the late Mr. Motilal Vora. Not to forget the other treasury holders as well. How do you react to that?
No, first of all the blame has been put on them. They say we had no idea what the accounts were and how it is. We just, if we signed it because Motilal had already signed it and cleared it. So, I mean, that is treachery. A man who has been so loyal to them.
Right.
And after his death, you say this. He was only a 12% shareholder.
And last but not the least, Mr. Swamy, how do you react to Congress's protests being labelled as satyagrah when this is just regular questioning by the central agencies like the ED?
Well, satya is the wrong word for it. They should have jhuta graha, not satyagraha. And it is ridiculous. If there is a due process of law being pursued, there is nothing illegal, then what is the need? I mean, everybody can demonstrate. Tomorrow, the Dubai guys can also demonstrate. There are a lot of people who are ready to demonstrate.
All right, Mr. Swamy, I'm sorry, I'll have to interject you there because I'm running short of time. But many thanks to you for giving us your precious time. And with that, let's now shift our attention over to other stories. Business tycoon and the founder of Infosys, Narayan Murthy, today virtually attended the News 18 India's special enclave as the country celebrates its 75th independence anniversary. He was felicitated with the Amrit Ratna. He also spoke to News 18 on a wide range of issues, including the creation of jobs, unemployment and India's economic growth. Let's listen in.
सॉफ्टवेयर के क्षेत्र में भारत जो आज सॉफ्ट पावर का दर्जा हासिल कर चुका है वो शायद उन्हीं की देन है। इन्फोसिस के संस्थापक हमारे अमृत रत्न एनआर नारायण मूर्ति नारायण मूर्ति जी स्वास्थ्य कारणों से यहां नहीं आ पा रहे हैं, लेकिन वो हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं। स्वागत करेंगे इन्फोसिस के संस्थापक अमृत रत्न एनआर नारायण मूर्ति जी का।
Thank you very much. So kind of you people. I am truly honored. I'm very grateful to TV18 for this kindness, this generosity, and this affection. I will try very hard and hopefully smart to deserve your kindness, your generosity, and your affection. Thank you very much.
So we have Minister Dharmendra Pradhan ji with us, and we would like him to formally present you with the Amrit Ratna. आप कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे?
नमस्कार नारायण मूर्ति जी, आप शतायु हो, आप दीर्घायु हो, आप सुस्त रहें। ये हम सभी का सौभाग्य है। न्यूज़ 18 की शायद ये पहला अमृत रत्न की अवार्ड आपकी नाम पे दिया जा रहा है। यह भारत की इंटेलेक्चुअल हेरिटेज की आप आज की प्रतिबिंब है, आप उसकी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव हैं। आपके माध्यम से भारत की नॉलेज बेस्ड इकोनॉमी को न्यूज़ 18 ने सम्मानित किया। एक सेल्फ मेड मैन जो दुनिया में भारत की मेधा शक्ति, भारत की संस्कार, भारत की परंपरा को जो दुनिया के अंदर एक ब्रांड के नाते स्थापित किया। इस 75 साल में नॉलेज बेस्ड इकोनॉमी की, डिजिटल इकोनॉमी की, डिसरप्टिव टेक्नोलॉजिकल एरा में सबसे ज्यादा कंट्रीब्यूशन भारत में करने वाले कुछ लोगों में आप हैं। ऐसे सम्मान में आज आपको सम्मानित करके हम सभी लोग खुद को गौरवान्वित महसूस करते हैं। आपको अनेक अनेक शुभेच्छा, अनेक अनेक बधाई। कांग्रेचुलेशन टू यू सर।
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I'm very, very grateful to you for your kind words. I will definitely try and live up to your expectations. Thank you very much.
Sir, we would like you to share some words on the story behind Infosys, the idea, how it started. We have heard a lot about the 10,000 rupees that you got from your wife, and that was the seed for this this tree that's taken over the world.
Well, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock. You continue to be with us here at CNN News 18. I am Ridhima Bhatnagar. Straight to our top focus. One of the world's most wanted terrorists, the leader of the Al-Qaeda, al-Zawahiri, has been killed in Kabul. United States President Joe Biden authorized a precision-tailored airstrike to target Zawahiri, who was hiding in a safe house located in downtown Kabul. 2 Hellfire missiles were used in the operation that killed bin Laden's successor. Zawahiri was a key architect beyond multiple attacks in the United States, and he was deeply involved in the planning of the September 11th terror attacks way back in 2001. Reactions are coming in worldwide from Canada and Saudi Arabia on the victory against terror.
Justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more.
Described as a successful counterterrorism strike. Top U.S. officials confirming the death of al-Qaeda's leader over the weekend. On Monday, President Biden addressing the nation.
My fellow Americans, on Saturday, at my direction, the United States successfully concluded an airstrike in Kabul, Afghanistan that killed the emir of al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri. He was deeply involved in the planning of 9/11. One of the most responsible for the attacks that murdered 2,977 people on American soil. For decades, he was the mastermind behind attacks against Americans.
Zawahiri led al-Qaeda for more than a decade. He was wanted on a $25 million reward for his role in the 9/11 attacks, the murder of U.S. nationals outside the United States, and an attack on a federal facility resulting in death. He took charge of the military group since the killing of Osama bin Laden in 2011.
The United States continues to demonstrate our resolve and our capacity to defend the American people against those who seek to do us harm. No matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out.
Zawahiri's targeted death comes nearly a year after the U.S.'s military withdrawal from Afghanistan and the Taliban's takeover of the country. I'm Melissa Rainey reporting.
Let's also now take you through some of the key questions that arise in the aftermath of Zawahiri's killing. Let's break down all those details for you. Remember, all of this happened in the heart of Kabul. So the first question that we are raising is, how was Zawahiri in the heart of Kabul without either the support or the knowledge of the Taliban? The second big question is, did Taliban give a safe haven to Zawahiri from 2021? The third big question is Taliban once again al-Qaeda's political shield? The other question that we're also raising at this point is, with no clear deputy, what really happens to the al-Qaeda now? There is no successor, so what happens to the organization? Also, the question that we're raising is, will this boost Joe Biden's sagging popularity in the United States? Will this be his moment to ensure that he can have some sort of stability as far as his own presidency is concerned? But these really is the big questions that we are going to discuss with our colleagues in just a bit. But first, let's take a look at this report.
The U.S. has been trying to do this for so many years. Kylie, this comes after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, nearly a year or so ago, changing the counterterrorism landscape. That presents new challenges for the U.S. right now, doesn't it?
incredibly new challenges, Wolf. And I think those at the State Department, those within the Biden administration who said after that withdrawal that the Biden administration would still work on counterterrorism operations in Afghanistan are probably feeling pretty good right now. Because, as you said, according to that Taliban spokesperson, this was a drone strike that was carried out yesterday in Kabul, which is hugely significant. And there have been concerns about how the Biden administration, how the U.S. could continue any sort of legitimate counterterrorism operations in the country without having a U.S. military footprint on the ground there.
You know, Kylie, you do a lot of reporting on all of the national security related issues. How high of a target was Ayman al-Zawahiri for the U.S. at this point?
Well, listen, he was an incredibly high target, but not only a high target, but a long-standing target of the U.S. government, Wolf. When you guys were talking earlier, he is someone who was integrally involved in the planning of the twin embassy bombings that took place in 1998 against the U.S. embassies in Tanzania and Kenya. That was over 20 years ago. And at that time, of course, he was on the radar of the U.S. government. And thereafter, he actually escaped a U.S. missile strike that the United States tried to take him and Osama bin Laden out in Afghanistan. And since then, he has just risen in terms of how important he is to the U.S. government.
Reactions there coming in, as we pointed out, also raising a lot of questions. One of the first questions that is, of course, is raising is that how did Zawahiri continue to be in the heart of Kabul? How did this actually take place without the support or knowledge of the Taliban? The other question again for the Taliban is, was the Taliban actually giving him a safe shield or safe haven since 2021 and its takeover? Now, former CIA Director General David explains what intelligence and military coordination was likely needed to complete the targeted drone strike against the Al-Qaeda chief. Let's take a look.
How had the Taliban, I mean, first of all, I guess the Taliban knew Zawahiri was living there and I guess approved that. What are their capabilities about the ISIS affiliate, against the ISIS affiliate?
Well, they're battling the ISIS affiliate.
Yeah.
They're also battling some of the resistance forces, as they're termed. Let me highlight something you just mentioned, Anderson, and that is, of course, that, again, the leader of al-Qaeda is located in Kabul, indicating clearly that, in a way, Taliban didn't learn the lesson from allowing, again, bin Laden to have a sanctuary on their soil when the 9/11 attacks were planned in Afghanistan. After which, of course, they refused to expel him from their territory. And that, of course, that's why we had to go in. So it does reflect the continuing close relationship that clearly still exists between al-Qaeda's senior leadership, that small group of Zawahiri and the others that is still left, and obviously the Taliban senior leadership. The fact that he was in Kabul, I don't think is something that could have been possible without the Taliban knowing that he was there.
Is it clear to you why Zawahiri has been able to avoid being captured or killed so much longer than Osama bin Laden was?
Well, first of all, Osama bin Laden stayed essentially off the net for a very long time as well. And Zawahiri has essentially done what bin Laden did, which means that therefore he can't very capably lead the affiliates of al-Qaeda around the world. Essentially, they have been operating autonomously, independently. They may be part of the brand of al-Qaeda, but they certainly weren't under any kind of operational control. Again, noting that this is a very, very symbolic success to bring one of the last of the original al-Qaeda leaders who did so much damage around the world. Again, the East Africa bombings, a number of the other bombings in North Africa, other exhortations of bombings elsewhere, not to mention, of course, being a core part of al-Qaeda when the 9/11 attacks were planned.
And he was increasingly, I mean, he's one of the group who was sort of increasingly radicalized in Egyptian prisons, wasn't he?
That's true. In fact, he actually led the Egyptian Islamic Jihad prior to this, EIJ, in the 1990s. And it was in the late 1990s that he actually merged with Osama bin Laden, again, they having met him earlier on the battlefields in Afghanistan fighting the Soviets with the Mujahideen.
And my colleague Anand Narasimhan also now joining us on the broadcast from our newsroom. So Anand, a lot of questions still remain post this killing of al-Zawahiri. The first question is, could this have been possible without the support and the knowledge of the Taliban?
Well, there are multiple ways to look at it. Ironically, that Pakistan, which denied the existence of Osama bin Laden on their soil, the Americans found Osama bin Laden not far away from the military outfit or cantonment outpost in Abbottabad, and he seemed to be living in the throes and perhaps in the company of the Pakistan military. Here, where Ayman al-Zawahiri has been neutralized is Sherpur. Sherpur is in the heart of Kabul, and it is impossible that nobody knew. It's not so far away. It's a 10-minute drive from the defense area and the hardcore key security zones in Kabul. And how is it that the Taliban did not know where Ayman al-Zawahiri is staying? It's another question. But the fact of the matter is that did the Taliban look the other way? That's another point. Is this a plausible deniability clause that they are also invoking? That's another way of looking at it, because there will always be two sides to the same coin. And Sirajuddin Haqqani, we spoke to him 15 hours before this strike, and at that time he said Al-Qaeda is a defunct, not a threat anymore, and as good as dead. So it's either a smokescreen that he was trying to create when he was speaking with CNN News 18, or he was talking about something which was inevitable. And look at the coincidence that 15 hours later, Al-Qaeda, head of the Al-Qaeda is dead, is neutralized. So how do we look at this is another way of trying to work this out. For the Americans, it's a big success that after their exit, they have got Ayman al-Zawahiri dead. So Osama bin Laden is dead, Ayman al-Zawahiri is dead, but does that mean terrorism is dead? Does that mean Al-Qaeda will not find a new fount? Does that mean the Islamic State or the Daesh will not act? We can see that they are active, their machinations are active, their operatives are still trying to find, there are still people who subscribe to their ideology and who are influenced by them. And the Al-Qaeda may just have moved base out of Afghanistan and may now be operating very strongly from Bangladesh. So there are many intel inputs which say that the Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent is has its fount and its large key operations out of Bangladesh. So these are all concerns which will remain. Does terror get neutralized? Is terror over? That's a bigger question. But for America, they will claim a big success back with their, and Joe Biden will go back to his constituency, a nation that is battling recession. He will have something jingoistic to offer and saying, listen, we've neutralized Ayman al-Zawahiri.
Anand, I'll request you to stay on with us. Now, on a day when the world has woken up to the news of the most wanted terrorists in the world being eliminated in the Afghan capital, as Anand was pointing out, in the heart of Kabul comes a sensational twist. CNN News 18 has spoken exclusively to the man who effectively controls the Taliban regime. In a lofty claim to CNN News 18, Sirajuddin Haqqani assured that Al-Qaeda is no longer a presence in his country and shouldn't be seen as a threat. 15 hours later, you have Zawahiri, which was eliminated in a drone strike by the United States in the house right in the heart of Kabul, exposing the massive lie peddled by the Taliban. Important to also specify, at the time of strike on Saturday, CNN News 18 team was in Kabul, just a kilometer away.
Would you like to clarify your position and where you as Interior Minister of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan stand? And this is for the Indian audience.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem.
Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim. First of all, I thank your country, your countrymen, your channel and the employees of your channel for the interview, and I welcome you here. I extend my gratitude and respect. I, at the beginning of this interview, wish to clear all doubts and suspicions that are prevailing in India and world at large. That Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan has come into existence with support of Pakistan. I wish to draw your attention that the last 20 years in Afghanistan was a period of annexation, aggression and ulterior motives of the imperial forces to occupy the land of Afghanistan. Whatever they wish to call it, it was for an occupation. Our holy jihad to free our country from the imperialistic power is our legitimate right. We strive to establish diplomatic relations with India, our neighboring countries in the region, and the world at large. Our freedom, our sovereignty, and self-respect is our legitimate right.
But Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani, the Indian security establishment, the people at large have several concerns, largely about terror outfits like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Taiba in Afghanistan, and the threat posed by them to Indian interests. Do you agree?
Afghanistan was at war with the external forces since 40 years, and the last 20 years we have been fighting the world for our legitimate right. Our soil is not meant for foreigners, but it belongs to the people of Afghanistan. And we have assured to the neighboring regional countries and to the world that the soil of Afghanistan will be used against any of the countries of the world.
But Mr. Haqqani, our security establishment, our intelligence agencies have confirmed locations, specific locations with latitude, longitude, coordinates of Jaish and Lashkar camps operating out of Afghanistan soil. You are in charge of security in Afghanistan. You are the interior minister. So let me ask you this. If at any stage, if the Indian government gives you specific coordinates and locations of these camps, will you be able to act and operate together with the Indian agencies?
Their fears do not have any base. We wish to have cordial relations with India, and such fears seem to be misplaced and undesirable.
What guarantee of security would you provide to Indian diplomatic institutions, projects and businessmen in Afghanistan at this stage when they want to operate normally?
I have already mentioned previously that such fears are baseless, and we have established peace in the country and ensured that everyone in Afghanistan is safe and secure. We have ensured that the business establishments, national institutions and foreign investments are safe and secure. We have security forces in place to provide security to these establishments, including all the diplomatic institutions. There is no credible fear for the project's investments. The Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan will prepare ground for their operations without any fear. We firmly assure you.
Mr. Haqqani, another area of concern and a growing concern is the threat of Daesh Khorasan and also very, very critical inputs, confirmed inputs regarding the network of Al-Qaeda affiliates operating out of Afghanistan. What is your take on this?
As we have promised to the world, also the Islamic world is in arms against the ISIS. To control and throw it out, many steps have been taken. With regard to Al-Qaeda, it has no presence in Afghanistan and is no more a threat, and the world is required not to feel threatened about the already dead outfit. Some Western forces which are trying to destabilize the country are being taken care of by the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan to control and contain these forces.
You say that the Al-Qaeda are not a threat and there is a concerted effort to also quash the Daesh. But what steps are you taking as Interior Affairs Minister and also Taliban to stop Afghanistan from becoming a global terror hub again? Because that's the biggest concern.
We have repeatedly said that the Treaty of Doha, which was signed, will be implemented in letter and spirit. And our message to the world is that no such terror outfit will make Afghanistan its center of terror operation. Our security agencies are competent to prevent and to nip such attempts in the bud, and we are firmly united against such forces.
Mr. Haqqani, you are seen as Pakistan's man in the Taliban establishment. You belong more to Pakistan than the Taliban. That's what people say. How do you describe your equations with Iran and Pakistan?
It is the need of the hour that the promises be made to the world, neighbors in the region. In pursuit of these goals, we are striving hard to have friendly and cordial relations with the neighboring countries.
Anand continues to be with us. So Anand, 15 hours ago, this is what the Interior Minister told you, that there is no presence as far as the Al-Qaeda is concerned. 15 hours later, you have Zawahiri being shot and killed in a precision strike in the heart of Kabul. How should one read this? Is this the Taliban being exposed, or is this Taliban distancing themselves saying, if you want to do something with it, we're okay with it?
Well, there are different ways to look at it, but we have to tell our viewers, we recorded this interview on the 29th, and on the 30th, early in the morning, around 6 a.m., is when this strike has happened. And the CNN News 18 team was just about 1.5 kilometers away, and from the area that is Sherpur, where this strike had happened. The confirmation coming from the Taliban that it is only Ayman al-Zawahiri who's been neutralized. His family is safe. There are also news floating around that the Haqqani family has also been affected because of these strikes, but this is all been countered by the Taliban, who have confirmed the strike. They've said that they are upset with the fact that this strike happened on Afghan soil. America has said that they are upset that this is violation of the Doha Agreement because Ayman al-Zawahiri is present on Afghan soil. But what he said very clearly is that the Al-Qaeda are a spent force and they are as good as dead. And 15 hours later, Ayman al-Zawahiri, the fountainhead or perhaps the head of the Al-Qaeda globally, is dead. But has the Al-Qaeda moved on? That's another aspect. Are there different facets to terror? Is terror over, or the threat to nations across the world, is it over? No. Are the doubts the fact that Afghanistan will now become a hotbed or a haven for terrorist outfits? Does that still loom large? Yes. Has that question been asked of Sirajuddin Haqqani? Yes. What he's saying is that the Taliban is working over time to try and ensure that that Afghan soil is not used by terrorist outfits to conduct activities on other nations and use Afghanistan as a base for their terror operations. So they are under pressure from the Chinese as far as ETIM is concerned. India has very clearly said that we have concerns with the Jaish and the Lashkar operating their camps in the Nangarhar region and some of the other region, their operations in the Helmand province, etc. There are concerns for Iran which come from which arise out of what kind of outfits which are operating from Afghanistan. Of course, there is concern to the Western world saying, will the ISIS, will the outfits like the IS, outfits like Al-Qaeda find Afghanistan as a very, very safe place to try and operate and perhaps even recalibrate and reorganize themselves. So these are concerns which will remain till the time the Taliban are able to show that they merit and they deserve to lead the government and the people of Afghanistan, till the time they go back to the people of Afghanistan and win an overwhelming mandate. But there is also an effort which we must underline. The Taliban want to disassociate themselves from the Al-Qaeda, from the IS. They say that their entire Mujahideen or their entire jihad movement was to free their country. Their fight was to free Afghanistan from the clutches of foreign nations. Now they have seemed to have achieved that. Now they want to focus on their people and they need all the help that they can muster. So is this a smokescreen to try and get nations like India to help them out, to try and finish their projects, give them humanitarian aid, give them food, give them medical supplies, while they also continue to encourage these outfits because there is a certain amount of funding? We must not forget that drugs, it's the opium basket of the world. More than 224 lakh hectares of land is currently under opium production. The entire drug menace, heroin menace is all emerging out of the Helmand province in Afghanistan. So that's another concern which remains. And narco-terror is one of the biggest issues. So these are all issues which are compounded issues. But how do you deal with all of it together? You can't. You have to go issue by issue. And we've tried to ask as many questions as we can of Sirajuddin Haqqani. And he's been upfront. For him to use words like Al-Qaeda is dead, Daesh Khorasan, the Islamic world is against the Daesh itself, Islamic State or even ISKP. The Daesh itself as a thought process itself, the Islamic nations are against it, so we are mounting a concerted effort against them. These are strong words that have come. Smokescreen or not, it is important to note what he has said, and of course the coincidence 15 hours later that Al-Qaeda head Ayman al-Zawahiri is dead.
Absolutely. Anand, we leave the conversation there. Thanks a lot for getting us all those details. Now, post that interview, we're getting the top 5 headlines and the assurances that we heard from the Interior Minister right here on CNN News 18. The first is we wish to have cordial and diplomatic relations with India. That's the first headline and the assurance that we heard from the Interior Minister. The second is Taliban did not come back to power with Pakistan's support. Very, very crucial. The third is won't let the Afghan soil be used against any country. This is something that we'd heard when the Taliban took over Afghanistan in 2021 as well. Al-Qaeda has no presence in Afghanistan, no longer a threat. Cut to 15 hours later, you have Zawahiri being killed in the heart of Kabul. What does this then really mean? And the other point is, no terror outfit will make Afghanistan its center of operations. And that's exactly the point that I was discussing with Anand, that how should one read what we heard from the Interior Minister vis-a-vis what we've seen 15 hours later. This is a story that we'll keep tracking very, very closely. We're now shifting our focus to the other big story that we're tracking. The Enforcement Directorate is carrying out searches at the Herald House and multiple locations in the alleged National Herald money laundering case. According to sources, raids are going on at about 10 to 12 locations. Remember, in this case, Congress Chief Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi were questioned in the National Herald case, which had triggered huge protests in several parts of the country by the Congress workers. The Congress party alleged that the central government is misusing central agencies. So once again, we're seeing the Gandhis under the focus. Days after the Enforcement Directorate grilled both Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi, the National Herald headquarters has been raided. Remember, in the backdrop of this case, we've seen Congress workers take to the streets and resort to pan-India protests. But first, let's understand what really is happening today. My colleague Akash is now joining us live on the broadcast from outside the Herald headquarters or the Herald House. Akash, what really is happening around you? What are these raids that we are seeing? Any activity that you can bring details to us about?
All right, so Ridhima, first of all, let me show you the building. This is the particular building, Herald House, and we are learning that at around 6:30 or 7 in the morning, these officers came to this particular building. And, in fact, we're learning that several officers have left this particular premises with some documents. But as of now, 6 officers are still there inside the building, and they are sitting at the accounts department searching for some specific documents as of now. Also, this is not the only place where the search is being carried out. At around 10 to 11 places, these searches are being carried out throughout the country. And as of now, this case is very much related to the National Herald AJL case. And at this point in time, it is, something that is getting all our attentions because, just a few days back, we learned how, in fact, first Rahul Gandhi and then Sonia Gandhi was questioned in the very same case. And now ED officers are very much there at the National Herald offices and AJL offices to conduct some sort of raids, some sort of searches, and also they are looking for some specific documents, Ridhima.
So Akash, you said it's not just the Herald headquarters or the Herald House, but other locations, as many as 10 other locations, I believe, are also being raided. Which are these other locations which are under the scanner as well?
So these are all the commercial buildings that are somewhere related to the AJL company. We don't know the specifics as of now, but these locations are in Kolkata and in Delhi as well. Ridhima, this particular building is very much important. Let me mention it again because, on ground floor and first floor, we have passport office. On the second floor, we have Qaumi Awaz office. And on the third floor, we have National Herald office. As of now, the information that we are getting is that, some officers have left the particular premises with some sort of documents in their hands. Also, 6 of the officers are still sitting at the accounts department. Again, if I can show you the 4th floor, there you see this is the National Herald office where ED officers are still sitting, carrying out these searches, and specifically, if sources are to be believed, then they are sitting at the accounts department as of now, and they are looking for some sort of documents as of now, Ridhima.
Okay. Akash, I'll request you to stay on with us. Our colleague Ashish Mehrishi tracks developments of the Enforcement Directorate, also now joining us on the broadcast. So Ashish, taking on from what Akash was pointing out, it's not just the Herald House which is under the scanner, but 10 other locations as well. There are about 6 officers who are still present at the Herald House. Any more details that you're picking up by the means of sources within the ED?
So what I've been told is these are basically companies. If you can please ask the producer, my voice is bouncing back.
We'll just try and fix that, Ashish, but please go ahead.
Yeah, so what I have been told by my sources in the Enforcement Directorate is that searches are happening on certain companies, basically who basically helped in funding of purchase of shares at the time when the young Indian was taking over of Associated Journal. So if you see, there have been purchase of shares just before when the Associated Journal was being taken over by Young Indian, and money for that purchase of shares came from certain companies. So these companies are being raided as of now on what was the modus operandi, how money came into those accounts for purchase of shares. Certain individuals got rights to vote. Now, interestingly, if you remember, in the month of September 2010, only seven individuals out of 1,500 people, they decided to hand over Associated Journal, which is a 1938 company, even before our independence, 1,500 shareholders, but ultimately only 7 people, in an AGM in Lucknow, they decide the fate of 1,500 people and hand over the entire equity of Associated Journal into the hands of Young Indian, where Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi are holding 38% each, and people like Motilal Vora and Oscar Fernandez, who were equity holders, they basically are no longer alive. So, all people in the matter have been questioned, which includes Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, people who are new office bearers like Pawan Bansal, Mallikarjuna Kharge, all have been questioned till now. But to my understanding, and my sources also reveal, that they are basically raiding certain companies through which money came into purchase of shares just before the takeover of the Associated Journal. So certain people who bought equity, who got voting rights, those areas is the area where the Enforcement Directorate is basically investigating. As of now, around 9 companies are, 9 locations are being raided, which include certain companies. The Enforcement Directorate is absolutely tight-lipped about those companies. Which companies are these? Because it's a matter of investigation. They're not revealing other locations apart from the Herald House. So let's see during the day, once the searches are over, maybe we can have some more details. But as of now, to my understanding, these are companies which were basically, which helped in financing of purchase of shares. So let's see how things move during the day. 10 to 12 locations are being raided as of now. One thing we can confirm is that houses of Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi have not been covered in this search. That is for sure. Residential premises of people associated with the Associated Journal have not been covered. Especially Young Indian has not been covered in the searches. So it seems they are looking forward for documents which relate to purchase of shares, and that is why they have hit on the Herald House and companies from where the money has come into purchase of shares.
Ashish, I'll request you to stay on with us. I'll request Akash also to stay on with us. We're getting some details now coming in. This, in fact, is the first reaction of the Congress. Jairam Ramesh has now tweeted, and I'd like to quote what he said in that tweet. The raids on the Herald House, Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg, are a part of a continued attack against India's principal opposition. The Congress, we strongly condemn this vendetta politics against those who speak up against the Modi government. You cannot silence us, end quote. Pallavi Ghosh, our senior editor, now joining us on the broadcast. Pallavi, this is a repetition of what we've seen being said by the Congress before, that all these are practices to try and silence voice of dissent. Two things that I want to understand. Give us more details of what the Congress is saying at this point. And two, how do you see this playing out in the backdrop of the Parliament session as well?
We've been saying this, that the Congress Party's official reaction is going to be pretty much what it has always been. That, this is a case of political vendetta. There's absolutely no case against the Gandhis. There was a closure, but it has been deliberately raked up because the Gandhis are the ones who most aggressively question. There are notices which are already pending, and Mallikarjuna Kharge made the point yesterday in Rajya Sabha that there are notices where we want a full-fledged discussion on the misuse of ED and CBI, but the government is not even allowing it. I think the Congress Party certainly would want to remind the government once again that this notice must be taken notice of. There should be a discussion on this, and I wouldn't be surprised. This is a strategy which is being worked out, that there will be protests both inside and outside Parliament against the raids which are being carried out.
Pallavi, thanks a lot for getting us all those details. We'd like to thank colleagues Akash and Ashish Mehrishi as well. Let's shift our focus to Bengal then. The latest in the Bengal SSC scam probe, after accused Partha Chatterjee claimed on Sunday that the money recovered by the Enforcement Directorate does not belong to him. Today, his close aide Arpita Mukherjee, from whose residence heaps of cash and gold were seized, has also claimed that the money does not belong to her. So the question is, whose money is it? The ED interrogated Partha and Arpita together on Monday. During the interrogation, Arpita claimed that the money is not hers. whereas Partha remained silent and did not cooperate in the questioning. The biggest question which arises now is that who really is the owner of the 50 crores recovered by the Enforcement Directorate.
এই টাকা আমার নয়, আমার অনুপস্থিতিতে এবং আমার অজান্তে আমার ঘরে টাকা ঢোকানো, এই টাকা আমার নয়, আমার অনুপস্থিতিতে এবং আমার অজান্তে আমার ঘরে টাকা ঢোকানো।
अर्पिता कितनी बार आपसे मिलने आती थी?
আমার লাস্ট দেখা হয়েছে 4 দিন যে ঝামেলাটা হয়েছে 4-5 দিন আগেও এসেছিল। তো আমি থাকি তো ওষুধপত্র খাই ঠিক টাইমে খাচ্ছি কিনা, হ্যাঁ ওষুধপত্র খাচ্ছি কিনা, ঠিকমতো খাওয়া দাওয়া করছি কিনা।
पार्थ चटर्जी को कब से जानती हैं?
আমি সেটা জানি না, আমার বাড়িতে একবার মাত্র এসেছিলেন।
क्या बोल रहे हैं?
बोल रहे हैं कि ये उनको पहचानते नहीं है, वो एक बार यहाँ पर आए हैं।
अर्पिता ने कभी पार्थ चटर्जी के बारे में इनको बताया?
আমি জানি না, ওই
अर्पिता ने बताया इनको?
आपने दीदी कोनोदिन আপনাকে अर्पिता दीदी कोनोदिन বলেছে পার্থদার কথা?
না না, আমার ওনার সম্পর্কে কিছু কথাবার্তা বলি।
कुछ नहीं बताया, कभी नहीं बताया।
দেখো আইনের উপরে আমার আস্থা আছে, আমি কিছুই বলতে পারবো না, এগুলো আইনের ব্যাপার। আমার অ্যাডভোকেট আছে, হ্যাঁ এরা লড়ছে, লড়বে, কাগজপত্র আছে, হ্যাঁ এখন আমি কিছুই জানি না।
ये बोलते हैं कि देखिए आइन पर विश्वास कर रहे हैं, आइन जो करेगा, मतलब इन लोग का
आइन मतलब?
आइन मतलब कानून।
अच्छा, कानून पर विश्वास।
कानून पर विश्वास है इनको, और ये करे कि हम लोग कुछ नहीं जानते, जो करेगा कानून करेगा।
पार्थ चटर्जी और वो नजदीक थे, करीबी थे, या कोई और लड़का कभी जीवन में रहा हो, कुछ बताया उन्होंने?
দিদি কোনোদিন এমন জানিছে কি আমার মানে এনার সঙ্গে মানে কোনো ইয়ে আছে?
আমার কোনো কারো ব্যাপারে ওনা কেন, কারো ব্যাপারে আমার সঙ্গে কোনো কথাবার্তা হয়নি, আমি আদৌ কিছু জানিও না। আমি এই খবরের কাগজ দেখছি, টিভি দেখছি, এ থেকে আমি সব জানতে পারছি।
আপনারা वो हमको कभी नहीं बताया, हमको उनको बताया भी नहीं है, वो भी एक खबर मिला है कि टीवी देख रहे हैं, न्यूज़ देख रहे हैं, तब उनको पता चल रहा है कि ये था।
क्या लगता है बेटी निर्दोष है?
अब दीदी আপনার মনে হচ্ছে কি দিদি পুরো নির্দোষ?
আমি কিছুই বলবো না এই ব্যাপারে, কেন আমি সঠিক জিনিস যখন জানি না, বিচারক যখন জানে না, আমি কি করে জানবো? কিভাবে কি আইনের রাস্তাতে হবে, কার জিনিস প্রমাণ তো করতে হবে না, আমার নেই তো নেই, কার তো তাহলে প্রমাণ তো করতে হবে, সকলেই জানুক আমিও জানি।
So Arpita Mukherjee is also saying she doesn't have anything to do with almost 50 crores that has been recovered so far by the Enforcement Directorate. Partha Chatterjee is also claiming that he has no idea as to who the owner is of this almost 50 crore cash. But the cash is not the only thing which is currently under the scanner. There are almost 10 flats which are under the scanner. There are luxury cars under the scanner, gold blocks that have been found, other jewelry that has been found, and a lot of incriminating documents that have been found as well by the ED. So as of now, both Arpita Mukherjee and Partha Chatterjee, who are under the scanner of the Enforcement Directorate, are claiming innocence, saying they have no clue as to who the real owner is of this almost 50 crore cash that has been recovered so far by the agency. My colleague and senior editor Shaugato now joining us on the broadcast. Shaugato, this is getting very interesting. Both Arpita Mukherjee and Partha Chatterjee are now claiming innocence, saying we have nothing to do with the 50 crore cash that has been recovered by the agency. Then who really is the owner of this cash?
That's right. That's the million-dollar question, if I can put it that way. But the point is, you know, both Partha Chatterjee and Arpita Mukherjee have claimed that the cash has nothing to do with either of them. And also, you know, the fact that Arpita Mukherjee has emphatically said today that the cash was put in those apartments without her knowledge and at the time when she was absent. So she has now spoken to the media, claiming that she has absolutely, or she had absolutely no knowledge of that cash that has been recovered, that 50 crore amount of cash from 2 of her properties. But let me tell you, this is another property where I am currently standing. This is Fort Oasis, where I am currently standing in the southern parts of Kolkata, and I'll show you. This is Block 6, where you know, which is one of the blocks of this upscale condominium in South Kolkata, where the Enforcement Directorate officials have now come for conducting a search operation that is currently going on in flat number 503. Of course, the media has no access to it. You can see the central forces standing guard right at the base of the block. not allowing any people inside right now because search operations are currently underway in this flat number 503 in block 6 of Fort Oasis. That's another flat, that's another property in South Kolkata. Interestingly, this flat is neither registered in the name of Partho Chatterjee or Arpita Mukherjee. It's, these are preliminary information that we are getting. We will have to obviously cross-check a lot of these information, but let me tell you, based on the preliminary information that we are getting by inquiring with the locals over here, this flat is registered in the name of one Om Jhunjhunwala. Now, who is Om Jhunjhunwala? Is he the developer of this property? We will have to, delve a little deeper. These are early days. The ED has just reached here less than half an hour ago, and it seems that this is one of the Benami properties of Partho Chatterjee. That's the initial input that we are getting. It could be one of the Benami properties of Partho Chatterjee or Arpita Mukherjee, and the ED may have received the tip for this particular property from Arpita Mukherjee herself. The ED has been questioning her for the last 7-8 days now, and the tip may have come from Arpita Mukherjee herself, and that's the reason why the ED is here. We are told that the flat is locked, and the ED has obviously sought the help of local police, the local Thana over here, who have come. Officials from the local Thana have also come, and there is a process of breaking into that, breaking the lock, opening the lock, and getting inside the property. That could also be the reason why the help of the local police has been sought. But we do not know of any further information as to whether the ED has managed to get inside, or whether if it has, then whether it has managed to recover anything, close to what it had in the last two properties that it had raided. Back to you.
Shogata, thanks a lot for getting us all those details. We'll continue to come back to you right through the day. Let's also now shift our focus to the other big story that we're tracking. There's a twist in the conspiracy claim made by Jharkhand Congress MLA Kumar Jaimangal. Now, Assam MLA Piyush Hazarika has stated that it's a baseless charge and shared a photo which depicts Jaimangal sitting with Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma and Union Minister Prahlad Joshi. Remember, Kumar Jaimangal had claimed that he was being lured by other Congress MLAs to meet the Assam Chief Minister to plan the toppling of the JMM and the Congress government in Jharkhand. Jharkhand Congress MLA Kumar Jaimangal has spoken exclusively to CNN News 18 about the matter, saying that the reason he met with the Assam Chief Minister was that he could aid his quest to lift the ban on his inter-trade union. The Assam Chief Minister reportedly arranged the meeting with Prahlad Joshi on the same, which is what is depicted in the photo which has been tweeted out by Assam MLA Hazarika, which we're also putting out on our screens.
अगर ट्वीट हुआ तो अगर ट्वीट में सत्यता थी तो ट्वीट डिलीट क्यों किया गया? आज ट्वीट डिलीट हो गया। दूसरा चीज कि मैं प्रहलाद जोशी जी के घर में था, मैं 11 अकबर रोड में था और मैं प्रदेश प्रभारी अविनाश पांडे जी की जानकारी में था, मैं सीएम झारखंड उनके जानकारी में था। कल को मेरे ऊपर ईडी हो जाए, कल को मेरे ऊपर सीबीआई हो जाए तो कोई बड़ी चीज नहीं है कि अनूप सिंह पे ये क्यों हो रहा है। तो जैसे जैसे उनका पलटवार आएगा वैसे वैसे मैं आप लोग को 1 घंटा प्रेस ब्रीफिंग लीजिएगा, मैं 1 घंटा दूंगा, 2 घंटा लीजिएगा, मैं 2 घंटा दूंगा। मैंने ये बात बहुत क्लियरली बोला है कि मेरे विधायकों के पास जो पैसा पकड़ा है वो इनकम टैक्स का विषय है, लेकिन मैंने उनको नहीं बोला कि ये पैसा किसका है। फुरकान अंसारी साहब ने जो जवाब लगाया मैंने न्यूज 18 में उसका फोनो दे दिया है और शायद वो सबको वायरल भी हो जाएगा। अभी न्यूज 18 लाइव ले रहा था तो उसका जवाब आपको मिल जाएगा।
ठीक है, वो तो मान लिया कि वो हमारा माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी का साथ प्रहलाद पटेल जी को मिला, वो मान लिया। लेकिन मेरा कहना है कि उसने जो बेबुनियाद फॉल्स इल्जाम लगाया है, जो एमएलए लोगों को वेस्ट बंगाल में जब्त किया गया है, वो करार किया गया है, उनको जयमंगल कुमार को पैसा देने का और फलाना जो बेबुनियाद इल्जाम लगाया है लोग, वो झूठा है, वो झूठा है, क्योंकि एक सप्ताह पहले असम का सीएम मुख्यमंत्री महोदय को उन्होंने मिला था असम भवन में, और उनका साथ ही गया था प्रहलाद पटेल जी को मिलने के लिए। उस समय असम सीएम साहब ने कुछ नहीं बोला उनको, और एक सप्ताह बाद ही कोई एमएलए उनको बोला आप आइए, हम आपको पैसा देता है, असम का सीएम हिमंत बिस्वा शर्मा जी के साथ आपको मिलवा देता है। ये बेबुनियाद इल्जाम है। आपसे विनती करके आपसे जानना चाहता हूँ, आप कृपा करके उनको पूछिए। 3 दिन पहले उसने केस डाला रांची थाना में कि क्या उसमें क्या बोला गया। उन लोगों का ही 3 एमएलए ने उसको लुभाया, उसको बुलाया और बोला कि असम जाओ, चलो असम सीएम को मिले और उनसे पैसा ले और बीजेपी का झारखंड का गवर्नमेंट को ट्रिपल करे। वो परसों किया था। परसों उन्होंने जो सीएम साहब को एक सप्ताह पहले मिला था, उस सब का एक शब्द भी जिक्र किया था। मेरा प्रश्न वो है।
My colleague Kamalika Sengupta is now joining us on the broadcast. Kamalika, before we get into the politics of it, why don't you give our viewers a background of what are the allegations and counter allegations that have been made so far?
See, all this case started when 3 Jharkhand MLAs, they were arrested on Sunday morning. They were detained on Saturday evening while they were en route to Jharkhand because they had lots of cash in their car, which was recovered by Bengal police. Now that is under CID investigation, and according to our sources, we are coming to know that these 3 MLAs, they have visited Guwahati. So there is a Guwahati connection, but that is also we are getting from the CID sources. Now what happened? When these 3 MLAs got arrested, this Anup Singh Urf Jaimangal, he filed an FIR that point of time stating that he has been also offered money, and he has been also offered money by the other MLAs who are arrested, and he will stating that they want to topple down the Jharkhand government, and Hemant Biswa Sharma is behind it. But the thing is that, which came out today in the morning, the photos which has been tweeted by Piyush Hazarika, in that photo, it is seen that this MLA, Anup Singh Jaimangal, he met Hemant Biswa Sharma before, filing this FIR. This FIR says that his colleagues, like 3 MLAs who are arrested, they have promised him that they will take him to this Hemant Biswa Sharma. But the photo which came up, this photo shows that he met Hemant Biswa Sharma before he filed the FIR. So what is it? What is the grey area? What is the actual story? To expose this MLA, this Anup Singh, what is he trying to show? That's a big question, and that
really is the question. Kamalika, that really is the question, and I'll request you to stay on with us. Our political editor, Maria Shakil, also now joining us on the broadcast. Maria, Anna Kumar Jaimangal is saying that if there was honesty in what has been said, why was the tweet deleted? Maria, can you hear us? Okay, we'll try and re-establish that connection with Maria. I believe Maria is now back with us. Maria, can you hear me this time around? I was essentially asking, in between all these claims and counter-claims, Kumar Jaimangal has gone on to say that if there was honesty in what is being claimed, why was the tweet deleted?
Where has the tweet been deleted? Mr. Hazarika, all of them have gone on record to essentially say that there was a meeting of this nature that was held. The larger question that is being raised now is, what was the reason for this meeting? If on one hand, Jaimangal has a meeting with Hemant Biswa Sharma and Union Coal Minister, that is Prahlad Joshi, and then 2 days later, he files an FIR against some of his colleagues saying that they tried to lure him into meeting Hemant Biswa Sharma. So there are several grey areas in this story. First question is, why was Jaimangal meeting Mr. Sharma? And if it was just about a cordial meeting, then what made him file that FIR post then? There are several questions that are being asked now. We are seeing that charge that is being leveled by the BJP now. Mr. Hazarika, Piyush Hazarika, who has now gone on record to ask several questions, has now said very clearly that it is the Congress in-house which has to explain much more. Remember, the JMM Congress relationship, which is the alliance government which runs the state of Jharkhand, has several questions unanswered among themselves as well. It hasn't been the most smooth alliance either. There are several Congress MLAs. In fact, 3 of them have already been suspended because cash was recovered from them. Jay Mangal was the one who, in fact, filed that FIR against these MLAs. So his own role is now under question, and this entire cloud of suspicion from where the money came. There's several unanswered questions in this story, but overall, the message that came from Hemant Soren when he addressed the assembly yesterday, he said that efforts have been made to topple my government in the past, and the government is stable. Himanta Biswa Sarma, on his part, says that he has nothing to do with any of these sides. If anything, his cabinet colleague Piyush Hazarika has raised the question, what was Jay Mangal doing in that meeting? Why was that meeting held if indeed he was to go and file FIR, saying that there was an effort made by some of his colleagues to lure him into meeting Himanta Biswa Sarma?
Maria and Kamalika, thanks a lot for getting us all those details. We're also now getting, by the means of government sources, India's first response to Zawahiri's killing. The killing of Zawahiri may adversely affect the morale of Al-Qaeda supporters and cadres in India as well. The extremely close ties between Taliban and the Al-Qaeda is evident from the fact that Zawahiri was stationed in a posh Kabul neighborhood. This close Al-Qaeda-Taliban tie-up is totally against Indian interests. Arunama is getting us this first response by the means of government sources. Arunama, details please.
So 2-3 points that are coming out from the establishment here, which is looking at India's strategic interests. First thing, they feel that somebody obviously leaked the information about al-Zawahiri's location in Kabul. Who leaked it? That could lead to fighting between Taliban and the Haqqani network, both being suspicious of the other. How would this translate for India's interest? They are saying that Ayman al-Zawahiri's possible successor, Saif al-Adl, he is somebody who's known to have more field experience. He's been accused of carrying out the bombing of the US Embassy in Kenya in 1998. So him, if he undertakes more of these field attacks, more of targeting US interests in the field, that would give Al-Qaeda heft. That would also mean more recruitment. How would this translate for Jaish-e-Mohammed, for Lashkar-e-Toiba? We have seen in past investigations, like the Pulwama bombing investigation, how the cadre of these groups were interchanging with Al-Qaeda, and that is the second thing that India is closely watching. Third thing is the role of ISKP, the ISIS Khorasan province, and ISIS. Will this also begin a fight for cadres between Al-Qaeda and ISIS? And if these cadres then join the ISIS, which has made it very clear about their intentions, will that mean more worry for India? So those are the broad points that India is watching very closely, but they are very certain that the fact that al-Zawahiri enjoyed patronage of Taliban is something that was suspected. The fact that his residence was found in a highly secured and posh locality of Kabul just proves that Al-Qaeda very much is getting patronage from Taliban.
Arunama, thanks a lot for getting us all those details. We're also now shifting our focus to the other big global story that we're tracking. United States House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is expected to visit Taiwan. Now remember, this is a region that has sparked tensions between the United States and China in the past due to their differing stance on the island as well. Now, as per inputs and details that we are picking up, Pelosi is slated to meet Taiwan's president on Wednesday. Interestingly, Pelosi did not include Taiwan in her official itinerary. Taiwan is a self-ruled island but claimed by China, which sees it as a breakaway province. China has issued a strong warning to the Biden administration, saying that its military won't sit by idly if Beijing feels its sovereignty and territorial integrity is being threatened.
Much precedent in the sense that previous speakers visited Taiwan. Many members of Congress go to Taiwan, including this year. And so if the speaker does decide to visit and China tries to create some kind of crisis or otherwise escalate tensions, that would be entirely on Beijing. We are looking for them, in the event she decides to visit, to act responsibly and not to engage in any escalation.
China continues to fume over Nancy Pelosi's visit, threatens strict action if she follows her itinerary.
I know that, like everyone, you are also following very closely her trip to Asia. And about the question you raised, I would say that this is more suitable to be directed at herself or the U.S. side. Now, about the position and the attitude of the Chinese side, it's been very clear. China has on many occasions made it clear our position on this, and we have made serious demarches to the U.S. side. We are also closely following the itinerary of Speaker Pelosi, and if the U.S. continues down the wrong path, we will take strong and resolute measures to ensure our sovereignty and security interests.
So that's the reaction that's coming in, where China continues to fume over Nancy Pelosi's visit. They're threatening strict action if she does, in fact, visit Taiwan. China has its stand very clear, saying that we will be following the trip itinerary, and if the United States continues down the wrong path, we will be ready to take strict action. They're also going on to say that we will ensure our sovereignty and national interests are taken into account before anything else. My colleague Abhishek Jha is now joining us on the broadcast. Unexpected lines, this reaction of China, but what are reports suggesting? What is the plan that is being readied by Beijing if Nancy Pelosi does in fact land in Taipei, Taiwan?
So we have known that so far Chinese side have tried to war against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and however, but now we for sure know that Nancy Pelosi is going to travel to Taiwan. Most likely she is going to land in Taiwan tonight only. So China continuing is rhetorical threat that any eventuality or anything that something that goes wrong in the context of the visit of Nancy Pelosi is something that is going to be. We'll have to see for that, because China has so far said.
Okay, Abhishek, thanks a lot for getting us all those details. This is a story that we'll keep tracking very, very closely. Before I go, we're leaving you with this conversation. CEO of Serum Institute of India, Adar Poonawala, today attended News 18 India's special conclave as the country celebrates its 75th independence anniversary. He was also felicitated with the Amrit Ratna. Let's take a look.
अगले अमृत रत्न का स्वागत करेंगे हम जिनका संबंध हम सब से है, देश की रगों रगों से है। 2.5 साल पहले कोरोना ने हम सब के जीवन को कैद कर लिया था। कोरोना के खिलाफ इस लड़ाई में भारत को जिसने बाहुबली बनाया, स्वागत है आधार जी। आई रिक्वेस्ट यू टेक द माइक। वो शोले में एक डायलॉग था, सरदार हमने आपका नमक खाया है, इस देश ने आपकी वैक्सीन लगवाई है। अमृत रत्न आधार पूनावाला स्वागत करेंगे। ये ऐसी हैप्पी एंडिंग होगी, आपने सोचा था इस तरह का क्लाइमैक्स होगा जब वो लड़ाई चल रही थी कोविड के दौरान?
देखिए, पहले तो बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मेरी हिंदी थोड़ी कमज़ोर है, तो इंग्लिश में भी कुछ बातें हम कर लेंगे। ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर, थैंक यू एंड न्यूज़ 18 फॉर दिस रिकग्निशन। नहीं, देखिए, बहुत सारे देशों में जब कोविड स्प्रेड हो रहा था, बहुत सारी वैक्सीन हेजिटेंसी थी. जिस तरह ने श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की गवर्नमेंट ने और उनके कहने पे सब लोग यूनाइट हो गए और वैक्सीन लगाना शुरू किए. Our vaccine coverage as a country is far higher than any country in the world. US से भी जास्ती. US ने प्रोग्राम थोड़ा अर्ली उनकी शुरुआत थोड़ी कुछ 2-3 महीने पहले हुई थी. But we overtook that, by leaps and bounds. And that was only thanks to the government getting everyone together. और जो collaboration और cooperation private sector सिर्फ वैक्सीन कंपनीज नहीं मगर अपने टेस्टिंग किट्स ऑक्सीजन सब मिला के. और ये वैक्सीन हेजिटेंसी की जो लोग सोशल मीडिया पे जो थोड़े दे वर स्कैर्ड एंड हेजिटेंट, वो सब मिटा के हम आगे बढ़े.
Well, that was a special honor to Adar Poonawalla. Once again, at the top of 2 p.m., a very warm welcome here on CNN News 18. Hello, I'm Anusha Soni. Our top focus this hour is one of the world's most wanted terrorists, the leader of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, dead. He's been killed in Kabul. United States President Joe Biden authorized a precision-tailored airstrike to target Zawahiri, who was hiding in a safe house located in downtown Kabul. 2 Hellfire missiles were used in the operation that killed bin Laden's successor. Zawahiri was the key architect behind the multiple attacks in the United States, and he was deeply involved in the planning of September 11 terror attacks back in 2001. Reactions are coming from across the world, from Canada to Saudi Arabia, on the victory against terror.
Justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more.
Described as a successful counterterrorism strike. Top U.S. officials confirming the death of al-Qaeda's leader over the weekend. On Monday, President Biden addressing the nation.
My fellow Americans, on Saturday, at my direction, the United States successfully concluded an airstrike in Kabul, Afghanistan, that killed the emir of al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri. He was deeply involved in the planning of 9/11. One of the most responsible for the attacks that murdered 2,977 people on American soil. For decades, he was the mastermind behind attacks against Americans.
Zawahiri led al-Qaeda for more than a decade. He was wanted on a $25 million reward for his role in the 9/11 attacks, the murder of U.S. nationals outside the United States, and an attack on a federal facility resulting in death. He took charge of the military group since the killing of Osama bin Laden in 2011.
The United States continues to demonstrate our resolve and our capacity to defend the American people against those who seek to do us harm. No matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out.
Zawahiri's targeted death comes nearly a year after the U.S.'s military withdrawal from Afghanistan and the Taliban's takeover of the country. I'm Melissa Rainey reporting.
Well, joining us on the broadcast right now is Ben Wedman from CNN. He's joining us from Rome. Thank you, Ben, for speaking to us. Help us understand, U.S. is calling this a moment of vindication for its people. Do we have details of the strike and if there were any other casualties in this operation?
We understand the strike took place Sunday morning in Kabul in the Shirpur neighborhood. According to U.S. officials, a drone fired 2 Hellfire missiles. Now, American officials claim that only Ayman al-Zawahiri was killed in this strike, that this was a strike that was months planned, and the U.S., including President Biden, were determined to avoid any additional casualties beyond Ayman al-Zawahiri himself.
Well, that also leads us to the question that could he have been in Kabul without the knowledge of Taliban?
It's highly unlikely that he was in Kabul without the knowledge of the Taliban. In fact, according to information that's out there, he was living in a building owned by a member of the Haqqani network. That's part of the Taliban movement. And in fact, it appears that wherever he was before the Taliban took over Kabul, he moved to Kabul apparently because he felt safer in the absence of U.S. forces in the Afghan capital. So, in short, it's highly unlikely the Taliban were unaware that Ayman al-Zawahiri lived in that villa in the Shirpur neighborhood.
Well, with no successor to Al-Qaeda, what happens now? That's the key question.
Al-Qaeda, certainly in recent years, has become increasingly irrelevant. They were eclipsed by the Islamic State, and it appears that their main goal in recent years, particularly Ayman al-Zawahiri, was merely to stay alive. And even that obviously hasn't succeeded. And therefore, the question is after Zawahiri, who was, of course, the number 2 man to Osama bin Laden, the question is, will Al-Qaeda even exist after the assassination of Zawahiri? As I said, it's an organization that in recent years has become increasingly irrelevant.
All right, getting you more details, some exclusive information. How was this covert operation really carried out? Now, Zawahiri was killed with the cooperation of Afghanistan-friendly nations. Top sources tell CNN News 18 that United States has used Pakistan airspace in its covert operation. A top intelligence source has further confirmed that the US drone flew from a Middle Eastern country. It is further indicated that it's most probably UAE that used Pakistan's airspace. USA has further informed Pakistan in advance. Pakistan has an advance notice for its airspace permission and route of the drone. Well, there's also a possibility that Pakistan was not aware of the target, who the target of this covert operation really was. Anand Narasimhan, our managing editor, is joining us on the broadcast. Anand, this is a clear, these are clear details of how this covert operation was carried out, and perhaps Pakistan was not aware of the target.
Well, not just that, these are all Afghanistan-friendly nations. So did the Taliban actually know? And is this going to drive a wedge between within the Haqqani, within the Taliban, between the Taliban and the Haqqani network, and more importantly between Pakistan and the Haqqanis? So there are multiple questions that have to be answered. There is no doubt that the Taliban establishment was aware of Ayman al-Zawahiri's presence in Kabul, because this is the heart of Kabul and this is Sherpur in Kabul. It is impossible that nobody knew. But the fact is, who gave this information and how did the drone find passage? If it was Pakistani airspace that was used, and the origin of the drone or origin of this drone, the US drone, was one of the Middle Eastern countries. So clearly these nations knew that there is action which is happening. Perhaps the Pakistanis did not know what the target or who the target is, and they didn't bother to find out. The Pakistanis say they were even unaware that Osama bin Laden was there in Abbottabad behind the military barracks, and that the Americans came and neutralized Osama bin Laden. So they were so clueless with their own backyard. So clearly this was the aspect. The other thing is, when the US asked for airspace, the Pakistanis hardly say no. So it is possible that they were not aware of what this drone strike was about. The fact of the matter is that this is going to have ramifications. Ramifications at various levels. Within the Taliban itself, between the Haqqani network and the Taliban and the Taliban group, that is the Mullah Yaqub group. So these are multiple factions within the Taliban, and their Shura will have an opinion on this. Because, and of course, the Pakistani establishment will turn around and ask Sirajuddin Haqqani a few questions about what was happening in Afghanistan and how was this allowed and how were you guys clueless. And the Haqqanis will turn around and ask the Pakistanis, why did you give the drone airspace?
Absolutely, Anand. Multiple angles, not just within Afghanistan, but its friendly nations. To what extent did Pakistan really have information? Let's also take you through some key questions that arise in the aftermath of al-Zawahiri's killing. What are the key ramifications that my colleague was also talking about? First of all, how was Zawahiri in Kabul without the knowledge of Taliban? Is that even a possibility? Most experts would say that's not a possibility. Did Taliban give sanctuary to Zawahiri from 2021? Is Taliban once again Al-Qaeda's political shield, a fear that the global community has always had? With no clear deputy, what happens to Al-Qaeda now? Is it over, or perhaps this terror organization will find a new leadership? And the domestic audience of Joe Biden, Will his sagging popularity in US find a new boost? Is this something that he can use to appeal to his domestic audience? Well, let's also tell you some more information on these exclusive conversations that we get. The former CIA director, General David Petraeus, explains what intelligence and military coordination was likely needed to complete the targeted drone strike against al-Qaeda chief. Listen in.
How have the Taliban, I mean, first of all, I guess the Taliban knew Zawahiri was living there and I guess approved that. What are their capabilities about the ISIS affiliate, against the ISIS affiliate?
Well, they're battling the ISIS affiliate.
Yeah.
They're also battling some of the resistance forces, as they're termed. Let me highlight something you just mentioned, Anderson, and that is, of course, that, again, the leader of al-Qaeda is located in Kabul, indicating clearly that, in a way, Taliban didn't learn the lesson from allowing, again, bin Laden to have a sanctuary on their soil when the 9/11 attacks were planned in Afghanistan. After which, of course, they refused to expel him from their territory. And that, of course, that's why we had to go in. So it does reflect the continuing close relationship that clearly still exists between al-Qaeda's senior leadership, that small group of Zawahiri and the others that is still left, and obviously the Taliban senior leadership. The fact that he was in Kabul, I don't think is something that could have been possible without the Taliban knowing that he was there.
Is it clear to you why Zawahiri has been able to avoid being captured or killed so much longer than Osama bin Laden was?
Well, first of all, Osama bin Laden stayed essentially off the net for a very long time as well. And Zawahiri has essentially done what bin Laden did, which means that therefore he can't very capably lead the affiliates of al-Qaeda around the world. Essentially, they have been operating autonomously, independently. They may be part of the brand of al-Qaeda, but they certainly weren't under any kind of operational control. Again, noting that this is a very, very symbolic success to bring one of the last of the original al-Qaeda leaders who did so much damage around the world. Again, the East Africa bombings, a number of the other bombings in North Africa, other exhortations of bombings elsewhere, not to mention, of course, being a core part of al-Qaeda when the 9/11 attacks were planned.
And he was increasingly, I mean, he's one of the group who was sort of increasingly radicalized in Egyptian prisons, wasn't he?
That's true. In fact, he actually led the Egyptian Islamic Jihad prior to this, EIJ, in the 1990s. And it was in the late 1990s that he actually merged with Osama bin Laden, again, they having met him earlier on the battlefields in Afghanistan, fighting the Soviets with the Mujahideen.
The U.S. has been trying to do this for so many years. Kylie, this comes after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, nearly a year or so ago, changing the counterterrorism landscape. That presents new challenges for the U.S. right now, doesn't it?
Incredibly new challenges, Wolf. And I think those at the State Department, those within the Biden administration who said after that withdrawal that the Biden administration would still work on counterterrorism operations in Afghanistan are probably feeling pretty good right now. Because, as you said, according to that Taliban spokesperson, this was a drone strike that was carried out yesterday in Kabul, which is hugely significant. And there have been concerns about how the Biden administration, how the U.S. could continue any sort of legitimate counterterrorism operations in the country without having a U.S. military footprint on the ground there.
You know, Kylie, you do a lot of reporting on all of the national security related issues. How high of a target was Ayman al-Zawahiri for the U.S. at this point?
Well, listen, he was an incredibly high target, but not only a high target, but a long-standing target of the U.S. government, Wolf. When you guys were talking earlier, he is someone who was integrally involved in the planning of the twin embassy bombings that took place in 1998 against the U.S. embassies in Tanzania and Kenya. That was over 20 years ago. And at that time, of course, he was on the radar of the U.S. government. And thereafter, he actually escaped a U.S. missile strike that the United States tried to take him and Osama bin Laden out in Afghanistan. And since then, he has just risen in terms of how important he is to the U.S. government.
Well, here's getting you some indication about the thinking within the government. This is what sources are indicating to us. This is India's first response to Zawahiri's killing. Now, this is what sources are indicating to us within the government, that the killing of Zawahiri may adversely affect the morale of al-Qaeda supporters and cadres in India. The extremely close ties between Taliban and al-Qaeda is evident from the fact that Zawahiri was stationed in a posh Kabul neighborhood. This close al-Qaeda-Taliban tie-up is totally against Indian interests, unquote. That's what the sources are indicating. My colleague Arunima is with us on the broadcast and she'll tell us more about this. Arunima, over to you. Help us understand the sense that you're picking up from your sources within the government.
So first thing that the strategic establishment is looking at is who really tipped off the United States establishment about al-Zawahiri's presence. He was the world's #1 wanted terrorist and therefore the tip-off would have been certain. Could this lead to infighting between Taliban and the Haqqani network? That is what India is watching out for. Second thing there in their assessment is that because of al-Zawahiri's death, there could be issues of morale as far as cadre of al-Qaeda is concerned, which might translate into some good news because al-Qaeda was trying to build its network here in India, trying to recruit. If they are in disarray in Afghanistan, it could mean some good news on that front. But it could translate into worrying news if the same cadre then decides to move to ISIS. You know, ISIS and al-Qaeda both are fighting for, the same set of radicalized cadre. And if they move to ISIS, ISIS also has the ISKP, the Khorasan province plan. So that is something that India is waiting and watching. But most importantly, they're looking at this man called Saif al-Adl. He's the man who's accused of the US Embassy bombing in Kenya in 1998. He's believed to be the successor to Ayman al-Zawahiri, and he is known to be a man who carries out field operations. So if he then pushes al-Qaeda towards once again undertaking targeting US assets or targeting Indian assets, how will that translate as a wait and watch situation? Last and most importantly, since al-Qaeda has shared cadre, shared training with Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba, as investigations like Pulwama has revealed, this is a fluid situation that the establishment here is watching.
Arunima, talking from the national security point of view, India has keenly been watching what is happening in Afghanistan. We have a strategic interest keeping in mind the security situation in Taliban or the government of the day in Afghanistan is going to affect in many ways Indian interest as well. We've been involved in infrastructure project. There is a fear that Afghanistan might, foster the terrorist activities which have been a huge headache for the entire world, including India. Vis-a-vis the present development, how is the, the top Indian establishment, government officers really viewing this development?
See, what they're pointing out to the fact that al-Zawahiri's presence there in Afghanistan itself is a giveaway of how much you can trust Taliban. When there was an agreement between Taliban and United States of America, when the pullout happened, what was that one clause? The Taliban should not go back to what it did by providing a safe haven to Osama bin Laden. That should not be repeated. Yes. But Zawahiri's presence tells you that you can't really trust Taliban government there. That's the first thing they're pointing out. Second, specific to India's interest, I mentioned Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba and how we have evidence to show that both the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda have not only trained Jaish-e-Mohammed men, but that training, those arms and ammunitions have then been used against Indian interests as well. So in that sense also, how this is going to translate for India-centric organizations like Jaish and Lashkar, especially when Pakistan could be off the FATF grey list, that's the second worrying point as far as India is concerned after al-Zawahiri's killing.
All right. Thank you, Arunima, for putting all of that exhaustively into perspective for us. Well, here's the CNN Edge. Listen in to CNN's Fareed Zakaria as he decodes the killing of Al-Qaeda chief and what it means for the world.
President Joe Biden announces the United States has killed al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. What does that mean for al-Qaeda? Fareed Zakaria weighs in. This is a major strike, and it was successful in killing al-Zawahiri. What does this mean for al-Qaeda?
Well, the symbolic blow is shattering. Zawahiri was in some ways more the architect of al-Qaeda even than bin Laden. Zawahiri was the original Islamic jihadi militant. He was radicalized when he was 15 years old. He goes to jail as part of the assassination of Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, when he made peace with the Israelis. He has been the mastermind behind all of this. In some ways, you could argue that al-Qaeda was a marriage or a fusion between Egyptian brains and Saudi money. Zawahiri was the Egyptian brains, bin Laden was the Saudi money. And so in some sense, he is the original, the founder, the symbol for many of the cadres, probably even more so than bin Laden. So symbolically, a huge setback. The truth is, Al-Qaeda is in bad shape anyway. It is a shadow of what it used to be. And so I think that I'm not sure exactly how much effect it'll have operationally because it's already a pretty ragtag operation. But without question, the single biggest blow you could give to Al-Qaeda would be to decapitate Zawahiri.
So last year, Fareed, when you marked the 10th anniversary of the killing of Osama bin Laden, you said that Islamist terrorism isn't the threat it used to be. What do you think of the threat after this strike?
Well, I have been saying for a while, Don, that what we need to look at is the most important question is, are they inspiring people? Are they getting new recruits? Are they able to win people over to their cause? And in country after country, what you're finding is the answer is no. It's almost as though there was the sense of desperation and futility and hope in a lot of Islamic countries. They look to Al-Qaeda as some kind of radical way out. But very quickly, the charm wore off. They realized these are a band of thugs when they got into power, whether it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda.
And on a day when the world has woken up to the news of most wanted terrorists in the world being eliminated in Afghan capital, here comes a sensational twist. CNN News 18 spoke exclusively to the man who effectively controls the Taliban regime. In a lofty claim to us, Sirajuddin Haqqani assured that Al-Qaeda is no longer a presence in his country and shouldn't be seen as a threat. 16 hours later, Zawahiri was eliminated in a drone strike by the United States, in-house, right in the heart of Kabul, exposing the massive lies peddled by Taliban. Important to specify, at the time of strike on Saturday, CNN News 18 team was in Kabul, just a few kilometers away. Listen in to this conversation that we had earlier.
Would you like to clarify your position and where you as Interior Minister of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan stand? And this is for the Indian audience.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem.
Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim. First of all, I thank your country, your countrymen, your channel and the employees of your channel for the interview, and I welcome you here. I extend my gratitude and respect. I, at the beginning of this interview, wish to clear all doubts and suspicions that are prevailing in India and world at large. That Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan has come into existence with support of Pakistan. I wish to draw your attention that the last 20 years in Afghanistan was a period of annexation, aggression and ulterior motives of the imperial forces to occupy the land of Afghanistan. Whatever they wish to call it, it was foreign occupation. Our holy jihad to free our country from the imperialistic power is our legitimate right. We strive to establish diplomatic relations with India, our neighboring countries in the region and the world at large. Our freedom, our sovereignty and self-respect is our legitimate right.
But Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani, the Indian security establishment, the people at large have several concerns, largely about terror outfits like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Toiba in Afghanistan and the threat posed by them to Indian interests. Do you agree?
Afghanistan was at war with external forces since 40 years, and the last 20 years we have been fighting the world for our legitimate right. Our soil is not meant for foreigners, but it belongs to the people of Afghanistan, and we have assured to the neighboring regional countries and to the world that the soil of Afghanistan will be used against any of the countries of the world.
But Mr. Haqqani, our security establishment, our intelligence agencies have confirmed locations, specific locations with latitude, longitude, coordinates of Jaish and Lashkar camps operating out of Afghanistan soil. You are in charge of security in Afghanistan. You are the Interior Minister. So let me ask you this. If at any stage, if the Indian government gives you specific coordinates and locations of these camps, will you be able to act and operate together with the Indian agencies?
Their fears do not have any base. We wish to have cordial relations with India, and such fears seem to be misplaced and undesirable.
What guarantee of security would you provide to Indian diplomatic institutions, projects and businessmen in Afghanistan at this stage when they want to operate normally?
I have already mentioned previously that such fears are baseless, and we have established peace in the country and ensured that everyone in Afghanistan is safe and secure. We have ensured that the business establishments, national institutions and foreign investments are safe and secure. We have security forces in place to provide security to these establishments, including all the diplomatic institutions. There is no credible fear for the projects, investments. The Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan will prepare ground for their operations without any fear. We firmly assure you.
Mr. Haqqani, another area of concern and a growing concern is the threat of Daesh Khorasan and also very, very critical inputs, confirmed inputs regarding the network of Al-Qaeda affiliates operating out of Afghanistan. What is your take on this?
As we have promised to the world, also the Islamic world is in arms against the ISIS. To control and throw it out, many steps have been taken. With regard to Al-Qaeda, it has no presence in Afghanistan and is no more a threat, and the world is required not to feel threatened about the already dead outfit. Some Western forces which are trying to destabilize the country are being taken care of by the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan to control and contain these forces.
You say that the Al-Qaeda are not a threat and there is a concerted effort to also quash the Daesh. But what steps are you taking as Interior Affairs Minister and also Taliban to stop Afghanistan from becoming a global terror hub again? Because that's the biggest concern.
We have repeatedly said that the Treaty of Doha, which was signed, will be implemented in letter and spirit. And our message to the world is that no such terror outfit will make Afghanistan its center of terror operation. Our security agencies are competent to prevent and to nip such attempts in the bud, and we are firmly united against such forces.
Mr. Haqqani, you are seen as Pakistan's man in the Taliban establishment. You belong more to Pakistan than the Taliban. That's what people say. How do you describe your equations with Iran and Pakistan?
It is the need of the hour that the promises be made to the world, neighbors in the region. In pursuit of these goals, we are striving hard to have friendly and cordial relations with the neighboring countries.
Well, this exclusive conversation that we had earlier, what is it that Sirajuddin Haqqani had assured India while speaking to us? These are the key things that he said in this exclusive conversation. First of all, he said that we wish to have cordial and diplomatic relations with India. That's what the word was that was coming in from one of the top men in the government. Taliban did not come back to power with Pakistan's support. Well, how much of that is really true? Won't let Afghan soil be used against any country? And the presence of al-zawahiri that happens just a few hours later is another question. Al-Qaeda has no presence in Afghanistan and is no longer a threat. He also goes on to say that no terror outfit will make Afghanistan its center of operations, trying to deal with the fears that the entire global community, including India, that we have, that Afghanistan once again can be used as the soil for terror activities by Pakistan also. We'll continue talking about the story and much more lined up here on CNN News 18 on the other side of a quick break. Stay tuned.
CNN News 18 is New India's #1 news choice. Unprecedented 14-week leadership.
To stop this ship, which they say has been classified as a civilian ship and not as a military ship. Amid heavy rains in Madhya Pradesh's Harda, a bunch of children risked their lives just to reach school.
They crossed the submerged bridge even as rainwater flowed over it. The children held each other's hands and walked through the strong current. If even one of them had slipped, it would have spelled disaster. The bridge was built on a local river and appeared to be the only way to reach the other side.
स्कूल पढ़ने जाते हैं तो बहुत तकलीफ होती है आते समय
नदी पार करना पड़ता है, इसलिए हम एक दूसरे के हाथ पकड़कर स्कूल जाते हैं।
Harda and several other parts of Madhya Pradesh have been lashed with heavy rains for the past few days. And this has in turn triggered a flood-like situation across the state.
India's biggest ever auction of airwaves ended today with record bids. The total bid was over 1.5 lakh crore rupees. In fact, Reliance Jio was the top bidder with 88,078 crore rupees. Reliance Jio has acquired 24,740 megahertz spectrum. These 5G networks will operate at 10 times the speed of regular 4G. The phased rollout is expected by September of this year. And after the auction, Reliance Jio has released a statement saying that the right to use the spectrum will enable Jio to build the world's most advanced 5G network and further strengthen India's global leadership in wireless broadband connectivity. Reliance Jio Infocom chairman Akash Ambani said that Jio is all set to lead India's march into the 5G era. The Delhi High Court today said that Union Minister Smriti Irani and her daughter are not the owners of a bar in Goa and no license has ever been issued in their name. The order was pronounced after Smriti Irani filed a civil defamation suit against Congress leaders who allege that her daughter was running an illegal bar in Goa. Telugu Desam Party founder and former Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N.T. Rama Rao's daughter, Uma Maheshwari, was found dead at her home in Hyderabad's Jubilee Hills. A case has been registered and the police are probing possible death by suicide, even though no suicide note has been recovered. Maheshwari was the youngest of NTR's 12 children. Just over a year after it was launched, Battlegrounds Mobile India has been banned. It has been delisted from Google Play Store as well as from the Apple App Store. With 100 million users, this game has a large player base in India. The game has been banned under Section 69A of the IT Act. It is the same provision that was used to ban PUBG Mobile. BGMI was also criticized for sharing data with Chinese servers. Russian missiles struck the southern Ukrainian port city of Mykolaiv.
Ukrainian firefighters struggle to douse the flames in the aftermath of Russian rocket strikes on the Black Sea port city of Mykolaiv. Nearly 50 Grad rockets hit residential areas. The shelling killed one of Ukraine's wealthiest men, Oleksiy Badatursky, who was heading a grain production and export business. A day after the attack, Ukraine made its first shipment of grains since Russia's invasion. The first ship carrying Ukrainian grain set off from the port city of Odessa under an internationally brokered deal. It's a small but significant first step towards unlocking millions of tons of grains piling up in the country. 22 million tons of grains and other agricultural goods have been stuck in Black Sea ports because of Russia's invasion.
In a major affront to China, U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy
All right, we're getting you some more news which is coming in from the Enforcement Directorate. Another team of ED has reached Arpita Salon Nail Art on the Lakeview Road in South Kolkata. There are about 4 teams which are raiding various locations related to Arpita right now. One team is at Fort Oasis, Panditya Road, Lansdowne and various other locations. 2 teams are at 2 branches of nail art in North and South Kolkata. So various properties related to Arpita Mukherjee are being raided by the Enforcement Directorate. You remember that she has said that all the money that has been recovered from her flats is not related to her. She does not own it and she has no responsibility at all. But as expected, there are multiple raids which are happening at different locations. Saugata Mukhopadhyay with us on the broadcast, getting us more details. Saugata, over to you. Help us understand what's happening with these multiple raids right now. Any kind of recoveries that have been made, the details that you're picking up.
Well, you see, the Enforcement Directorate has now interrogated both Partha Chatterjee and Arpita Mukherjee over the last 4 to 5 days since that massive cash haul happened from Arpita Mukherjee's residence in Belghoria, the Clubtown Heights condominium, where that massive, staggering 28 crore rupees cash haul took place. Besides, the gold and other valuables which were recovered from that place. 4 to 5 days of interrogation perhaps has given the Enforcement Directorate some additional leads, based on which 4 teams left the ED office earlier today. And we now have concrete locations on the whereabouts of each of these teams. First, of course, is where I am currently standing, is this property called Fort Oasis,
Yes.
In the Lansdowne area of South Kolkata. The second, of course, is the Purbayan Abasan. Purbayan Abasan is also another residential property, apparently belonging to Arpita Mukherjee, a flat over there, which the Enforcement Directorate officials had broken open. They broke the lock open and have now gone inside. We have no details of exactly what they may have found inside. And 2 teams are simultaneously raiding 2 salons which were owned by Arpita Mukherjee, one in the Baranagar area of North Kolkata, other in the Lakeview area of South Kolkata. So these are the 4 teams which are currently raiding, and I'll show you. This is the car that I'm standing right in front of, which was used by the ED officials to reach where I am currently. WB08F 1890 is the car. Obviously, this belongs to the Bengal government, a hired vehicle probably. And this is the block number 6 of Fort Oasis, and you can see the central forces standing guard right in front of the entrance of this particular block. I will try and ask my camera person to show you how this property actually looks like. And this it is here on flat number 503. So obviously that is on the 5th floor of this particular block, this particular tower, where the raids are currently taking place. I've been telling you that the ED has taken the assistance of the local Thana to sort of gain entry or gain access inside that particular flat. What we have got so far is very, very interesting.
Yes.
This might just be a Benami property owned either by Partho Chatterjee or Arpita Mukherjee. It seems so, because from the details that we've picked up by talking to the security guards here and so on and so forth, is that this property apparently is registered in the name of a certain Om Junjunwala who purchased this flat back in 2015-16. What is very interesting is that the guards are saying that they have not seen anybody come in or go out of this property in the last 7 or 8 years. It always remained locked. In fact, one of the security guards told us that this is the first time that he is actually seeing somebody trying to access this property in his entire span of work over here, which ranges for about 6 to 7 years, he said. So in the last 6 to 7 years, this is the first time he is actually seeing somebody going inside. Now the question is, why did the ED target this particular property? Probably because it has had some concrete leads from either of the 2 suspects. In all likelihood, it would be Arpita Mukherjee, because we are told, we are picking up from our sources in the ED that Partho Chatterjee isn't being cooperative, he is not speaking too much.
And Shogito, as you said, one has to wait and watch that what kind of link this investigation is able to establish with that Benami property. I will come back to you. Please stay with us. There's some more breaking news which is coming in, and this is some kind of public anger which is in display against Partho Chatterjee. A woman throws her footwear at Partha. That's what we're hearing. Those are the visuals on your screen right now. Perhaps Shogito will tell us more about this incident. Shogito, tell us more.
Well, you see, this happened earlier in the day today when Partho Chatterjee was at the ESI hospital for his routine medical checkup, when the ED had taken Partho Chatterjee to the Joka facility of the ESI. When he was coming out, this lady who identified himself as Shubhra Ghorai, a local resident of the area, who had apparently also come to that hospital for some treatment of one of her relatives, actually threw her footwear at the car where Partho Chatterjee, in which Partho Chatterjee was traveling. She obviously told the news persons over there that she is extremely upset with the way things have developed over Partho Chatterjee, and he thinks that he should be brought to task, and it was a display of his frustration and anger, as a result of which she threw that chappal, that footwear, at Partho Chatterjee, at the car actually, where Partho Chatterjee was moving moving. So, she has been, detained for the time being, but it seems that she is is being kind of an embodiment of the kind of frustration and anger that currently prevails on the ground over this whole murky issue that is playing out in public domain.
Absolutely, Shogito, we'll keep coming back to you. And not to forget that ED interrogation of Partho Chatterjee and Arpita Mukherjee is currently underway. Various properties related to them are being raided by the Enforcement Directorate. We have had reactions coming in all day, isn't it?
After independent, ये सबसे बिग स्कैम है. इसमें 70 से 80 लाख करीब 1 करोड़ के आसपास अनएम्प्लॉयड एजुकेटेड यूथ का सवाल है. ये एक दो मंत्री का सवाल नहीं है. ये उसका जो हक है एजुकेटेड हमारी अनएम्प्लॉयड यूथ का, उसका हक छीन कर ये लोग सब रुपया की लेकर ब्राइब लेकर सब मैंने सेल कर दिया. ये स्कैम को पूरा जड़ से निकालना चाहिए. इसलिए ऑनरेबल HM को इस बारे में जो कार्रवाई कानून के अंदर आता है करना चाहिए. ही एश्योर्ड मी.
এই টাকা আমার নয়, আমার অনুপস্থিতিতে এবং আমার অজান্তে আমার ঘরে টাকা ঢোকানো. এই টাকা আমার নয়, আমার অনুপস্থিতিতে এবং আমার অজান্তে আমার ঘরে টাকা ঢোকানো.
अर्पिता कितनी बार आपसे मिलने आती थी?
আমার লাস্ট দেখা হয়েছে 4 দিন যে ঝামেলাটা হয়েছে 4-5 দিন আগেও এসেছিল.
पार्थ चटर्जी को कब से जानती है?
আমি সেটা জানি না, আমার বাড়িতে একবার মাত্র এসেছিলেন.
अर्पिता ने कभी पार्थ चटर्जी के बारे में इनको बताया?
না না, আমার ওনার সম্পর্কে কিছু কথাবার্তা বলি.
कुछ नहीं बताया, कभी नहीं बताया.
দেখো, আইনের উপরে আমার আস্থা আছে, আমি কিছুই বলতে পারবো না. এগুলো আইনের ব্যাপার, আমার অ্যাডভোকেট আছে, হ্যাঁ, এরা লড়ছে.
पार्थ चटर्जी और वो नजदीक थे, करीबी थे, या कोई और लड़का कभी जीवन में रहा हो, कुछ बताया उन्होंने?
আমার কোনো কারোর ব্যাপারে না, কেন কারোর ব্যাপারে আমার সঙ্গে কোনো কথাবার্তা হয়নি. আমি আদৌ কিছু জানিও না. আমি এই খবরের কাগজ দেখছি, টিভি দেখছি, এ থেকে আমি সব জানতে পারছি. আমি কিছুই বলবো না এই ব্যাপারে, কেন আমি সঠিক জিনিস যখন জানি না, বিচারক যখন জানে না, আমি কি করে জানবো? কিভাবে কি আইনের রাস্তাতে হবে, কার জিনিস প্রমাণ তো করতে হবে না.
Well, before we slip into a short break, here's an honor for business tycoon and founder of Infosys, Mr. Narayan Murthy. He today virtually attended News 18 India's special conclave as the country celebrates its 75th independence anniversary. He was felicitated with Amrit Ratna. He also spoke to News 18 on a wide range of issues, including the creation of jobs, unemployment, and India's economic growth. Listen in.
सॉफ्टवेयर के क्षेत्र में भारत जो आज सॉफ्ट पावर का दर्जा हासिल कर चुका है, वो शायद उन्हीं की देन है. इन्फोसिस के संस्थापक हमारे अमृत रत्न NR नारायण मूर्ति. NR नारायण मूर्ति जी स्वास्थ्य कारणों से यहां नहीं आ पा रहे हैं, लेकिन वो हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं. स्वागत करेंगे इन्फोसिस के संस्थापक अमृत रत्न NR नारायण मूर्ति जी का.
Thank you very much. So kind of you people. I am truly honored. I'm very grateful to TV18 for this kindness, this generosity, and this affection. I will try very hard and hopefully smart to deserve your kindness, your generosity, and your affection. Thank you very much.
So we have Minister Dharmendra Pradhan ji with us, and we would like him to formally present you with the Amrit Ratna. आप कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे?
नमस्कार नारायण मूर्ति जी, आप शतायु हो, आप दीर्घायु हो, आप सुस्त रहें. ये हम सभी का सौभाग्य है. न्यूज़ 18 की शायद ये पहला अमृत रत्न की अवार्ड आपकी नाम पे दिया जा रहा है. यह भारत की इंटेलेक्चुअल हेरिटेज की आप आज की प्रतिबिंब है, आप उसकी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव हैं। आपके माध्यम से भारत की नॉलेज बेस्ड इकोनॉमी को न्यूज़ 18 ने सम्मानित किया। एक सेल्फ मेड मैन जो दुनिया में भारत की मेधा शक्ति, भारत की संस्कार, भारत की परंपरा को जो दुनिया के अंदर एक ब्रांड के नाते स्थापित किया। इस 75 साल में नॉलेज बेस्ड इकोनॉमी की, डिजिटल इकोनॉमी की, डिसरप्टिव टेक्नोलॉजिकल एरा में सबसे ज्यादा कंट्रीब्यूशन भारत में करने वाले कुछ लोगों में आप हैं। ऐसे सम्मान में आज आपको सम्मानित करके हम सभी लोग खुद को गौरवान्वित महसूस करते हैं। आपको अनेक अनेक शुभेच्छा, अनेक अनेक बधाई। कांग्रेचुलेशन टू यू सर।
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I'm very, very grateful to you for your kind words. I will definitely try and live up to your expectations. Thank you very much.
Unfurling the Tiranga and the Har Ghar Tiranga in Jammu and Kashmir like it is across the rest of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, there are those who do not want this happening.
Let me take that point about the Gandhis being untouchable. It is a fact that when other Congress leaders were questioned by the agency in this very case, there were no such protests.
Manojit, can I ask a simple question? Be better served if there are discussions that happen inside Parliament rather than this kind of disruption, this kind of placard waving, which has led to the suspension.
75th year of India's independence, when the country was getting its first tribal president and a woman too, could all political parties have come together?
Away from the Gulf of Mannar, which is the territorial boundary between Sri Lanka and India. The Sri Lankan authorities say they are taking into account India's concerns, but since the port itself has been given out to the Chinese on a 99-year lease, there is very little that they can do to stop this ship, which they say has been classified as a civilian ship and not as a military ship. Amid heavy rains in Madhya Pradesh's Harda, a bunch of children risked their lives just to reach school.
They crossed the submerged bridge even as rainwater flowed over it. The children held each other's hands and walked through the strong current. If even one of them had slipped, it would have spelled disaster. The bridge was built on a local river and appeared to be the only way to reach the other side.
स्कूल पढ़ने जाते हैं तो बहुत तकलीफ होती है, आते समय नदी पार करना पड़ता है, इसलिए हम एक दूसरे के हाथ पकड़कर स्कूल जाते हैं.
Harda and several other parts of Madhya Pradesh have been lashed with heavy rains for the past few days. And this has in turn triggered a flood-like situation across the state.
India's biggest ever auction of airwaves ended today with record bids. The total bid was over 1.5 lakh crore rupees. In fact, Reliance Jio was the top bidder with 88,078 crore rupees. Reliance Jio has acquired 24,740 megahertz spectrum. These 5G networks will operate at 10 times the speed of regular 4G. The phased rollout is expected by September of this year. And after the auction, Reliance Jio has released a statement saying that the right to use the spectrum will enable Jio to build the world's most advanced 5G network and further strengthen India's global leadership in wireless broadband connectivity. Reliance Jio Infocom chairman Akash Ambani said that Jio is all set to lead India's march into the 5G era. The Delhi High Court today said that Union Minister Smriti Irani and her daughter are not the owners of a bar in Goa and no license has ever been issued in their name. The order was pronounced after Smriti Irani filed a civil defamation suit against Congress leaders who allege that her daughter was running an illegal bar in Goa. Telugu Desam Party founder and former Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N.T. Rama Rao's daughter, Uma Maheshwari, was found dead at her home in Hyderabad's Jubilee Hills. A case has been registered and the police are probing possible death by suicide, even though no suicide note has been recovered. Maheshwari was the youngest of NTR's 12 children. Just over a year after it was launched, Battlegrounds Mobile India has been banned. It has been delisted from Google Play Store as well as from the Apple App Store. With 100 million users, this game has a large player base in India. The game has been banned under Section 69A of the IT Act. It is the same provision that was used to ban PUBG Mobile. BGMI was also criticized for sharing data with Chinese servers. Russian missiles struck the southern Ukrainian port city of Mykolaiv.
Ukrainian firefighters struggle to douse the flames in the aftermath of Russian rocket strikes on the Black Sea port city of Mykolaiv. Nearly 50 Grad rockets hit residential areas. The shelling killed one of Ukraine's wealthiest men, Oleksiy Badatursky, who was heading a grain production and export business. A day after the attack, Ukraine made its first shipment of grains since Russia's invasion. The first ship carrying Ukrainian grain set off from the port city